We are? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Supervisors for Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 at 4 p.m. The Board of Supervisors welcome you to a special meeting scheduled in the board chambers here on the second floor of the Shasta County Administration Center, 1450 Court Street, Suite 263, Redding, California. Your interest is encouraged and appreciated. If we're not done by 7, we will probably take a 30-minute break because we have to reboot our systems and some of us have to get our blood sugars up. Not speaking for everyone, just speaking for me. To address the Board of Supervisors provides the members of the public with an opportunity to act on any item on the agenda and comment on it before or during the Board's consideration of the item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54950 et seq., Board action or discussion cannot be taken on non-agenda matters, but the Board may briefly respond to statements or questions and, if deemed necessary, refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up and/or to schedule the matter on the subsequent Board agenda. Persons wishing to address the Board in the boardroom are requested to fill out a speaker request form and provide it to the clerk over there, that's Stephanie. The forms are available online. They're available upstairs in Suite 308B, and they're available in the back of the room. If you have documents that you want to present to the board members to review, please provide a minimum of 10 copies. When addressing the board in the boardroom, please approach the rostrum, and after receiving recognition from the chair, give your comments. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be limited to items on the agenda. Also, the board wishes to ensure that business is conducted in an orderly fashion and all have an equal opportunity to observe and participate in the proceedings. Each person who addresses the Board of Supervisors shall not use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the board meeting. Any such language or any other disorderly conduct which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the board meeting is prohibited. So with that, I will ask everyone to please rise, and Supervisor Modi, if you'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you, Supervisor. We are going to go to the regular calendar. As I mentioned, the comments that we'll be asking for are really specific to the marijuana issue. Our goal here is to get as much information as we can. The way this will work is we're going to take the following actions regarding illegal cannabis cultivation in Shasta County. Mr. Pontus is going to introduce the program and talk about a little bit about the direction we're going to go in. And then Aaron Ryan from a congressional district representative from Congressman Doug Lamalfa's office is going to make a presentation. Then we're going to open it up for public comment. And then after we get public comment, our Assistant CEO, Eric Magrini, will come and sum things up and talk about next steps. So we'll know what direction we're going in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pontus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to start out tonight with thanking everybody that took time out of your schedules and your lives and your families to be here tonight. Tonight's a pivotal night for Shasta County. We are here tonight to listen. We are here to hear directly from you more about the illegal cannabis grows that are in our county and learn from you. We, as we've announced a couple other times, the county is developing a comprehensive and importantly sustainable plan where we can really ramp up, start, and aggressively attack illegal cannabis in our county. Tonight's a critical piece of that. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear from you. We want to hear the concerns that you have. And we have been hearing them. We have been taking notes from your emails, from your comments, from those of you that have spent a lot of time bringing this up and ringing this bell for us. We have some really dedicated folks here in the communities that we serve that have brought forth really good information, actionable information, that have brought forth maps, parcel data, descriptions of the crimes that are going on out there. And I can tell you tonight we have staff on site and off site taking notes from the comments tonight. And I can tell you, just from speaking from me, that I absolutely agree that we have a problem here in Shasta County. And we absolutely do need to move some resources and start addressing this at a higher level. Tonight, again, we're interested in hearing what everybody says, and we're going to be trying to capture that and figure out if you guys also have good solutions and good ideas to help us in this. I think that the illegal grows here in our county is going to, in order to fix it, first of all, it didn't get here overnight, but in order to fix it, we need everyone's help on this. We need the whole community, and that's going to mean here at us at the county, our partner agencies, or the state, and the federal government, and those in the community that can help us be the eyes and ears out there. I think all of our communities represented by different folks have actually spoken on this, and the board has heard, and my office has certainly heard of the importance for this. We're going to be back in front of our board, so the idea here tonight is to capture everything we can capture here from the comments made, integrate that into our plan, and we've got a really good head start on that plan, and then be back in August in front of the Board of Supervisors with that plan. And that plan will also help us address not only who we're going to use as partners, but also the financial resources that it's going to take to get the right amount of people focused on this. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair for the next.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to ask Erin to step up, please. And do you have a presentation for us? Okay. I was hoping you would. It's all yours.
Of phone calls about marijuana, lots of them from all over the district. I sort of became embroiled in this because I work a tremendous amount in Siskiyou County. So I kind of made some notes so this would go in. This is one of those topics I think everyone knows could mushroom out of control pretty quickly. I want to kind of buzz through the high points because I'm not sure that the people in this county are totally aware of what's going on in the county just to the north of us. And it sounds a little bit surreal, and if you're not hearing it, maybe from people who've actually been there, you might discount it. It'd be easy to discount. I don't fault anybody who isn't getting this handled in their county. I've watched them up there. I've worked up there for a decade, and I've watched this kind of creep in. This is about organized crime. So I know the discussion always devolves into marijuana's good, marijuana's bad, blah, blah, blah. What if they legalized it? Okay, forget all of that. If these were a bunch of people who came here from France who were growing tomatoes and they were doing it like this would all still be illegal. And that's the focus. But I want you to understand the magnitude and the speed, because this goes in, they're moving from county to county. We're no longer in the lab phase. This thing has traction. They're already ready to go, and they come in with a lot of money. So let me show you what the money looks like on the ground. That's 2018. The place isn't important, but in case you've ever been there, if you've ever driven up Highway 97, you're going to go to Klamath Falls. You get past the cutoff to Lake Shastina, and you look off to your left, and that's what you would normally see. And it kind of looks like not a whole lot of anything particularly. So in 2 years, it looks like that. So it kind of looks like Los Angeles a little bit, sort of, with some juniper. I want you to know none of those are houses. No houses. Not one house building permit has been taken out in the county, no well permits, and no septic permits. So you're looking at sum total in that area about 4,000 greenhouses now. It's gone from 1,400 to 4,000 in about a year. Now, you've got 6,000 to 8,000 people growing out there, and I'm sorry, but they don't have any houses. They don't have any bathrooms. There's no wildlife. There's a lot of stuff going on out there that is not good. So I started this on the coast. I lived on the coast in the Emerald Triangle, right? And the dope growers, they grew once a year. They disappeared. They came into town after they harvested. They bought new trucks with cash and they went away. It was not a big community problem. I went to work for Doug 10 years ago in the Senate, and we had Trinity County. And I got calls from a place called Post Mountain that they affectionately call Pot Mountain. And in Pot Mountain, one case that was just really stunning for me, since I had come from private industry and I don't know, I thought government was inefficient, but I had no idea. So much to learn, so little time. I had a woman who called, and she said there was a creek went behind her house, and the dope growers had these big diesel, I don't know, storage tanks under the ground, and they were leaking so much that the creek behind her house was running with enough diesel that she couldn't leave the windows to her house open because she got asphyxiated. And the water board, EPA, nobody. And this was back then. Nothing was happening. Nobody would touch it. It was scary. It was dangerous. The agencies wouldn't go. The sheriff wouldn't go. They told me not to go. So no one went. Now, interestingly enough, 63 parcels, and that's just because the woman stopped researching, 63 parcels in Siskiyou County were owned by people who previously were in Trinity County. These are the same people. They didn't just come here from anywhere. You do know you have a problem. I feel like I need to do it like a Jeff Foxworthy thing. You know, if you're at Walmart and you see Minnesota license plates, you know, you have a drug problem, because that's what happened up there. All of a sudden, everybody was from Minnesota. How did that happen? And Fresno, they started rolling in, and it was huge, just huge. Sheriff, totally overrun. They tried to vote. That's the other thing. That's kind of where you guys all come in. We care about this because their intention is to take over the county. So here's 2021. Again, no houses. Nobody's living in a house there. The A12, the road that connects Highway 97 to I-5, used to have about 200 cars a day. And there are people who live along that road who run game cameras and keep all these statistics. During the height of this, before the water ordinance, 4,000 cars a day on a 2-lane road with nothing but dirt on either side, hauling water, hauling chemicals, propane tanks. That was the awesome twist. A 500-gallon propane tank stacked too high on semi-trucks. They've got enough propane out there to light off the Hindenburg. The fire didn't get into a whole lot of that, so hopefully the Hindenburg won't happen, but let's see. There you go. There's a nice aerial view that's very current. The area that you saw made the news where they were bulldozing everything down is that white square on the left. That's about 622 acres with about 500 greenhouses on it, owned by a guy named Mu-Yong Lee, who had property in Trinity County. He rolls into Siskiyou County, buys 9 parcels. That's just one. And somewhere, I don't know the ins and the outs of it, but somewhere in a raid, he wasn't a very fast runner and he got caught. And they got all of his electronics. So they went through all of his stuff. This has been going on for a year and a half. Here's the district attorney's office. Everybody's got to be a player. I guess that's my message, is everybody's got to be a player. Nobody gets out of this. You've got to have the sheriff, got to have you guys, got to have the county offices, and you've got to have the district attorney. So the DA's investigator went after this guy, and after a year and a half, finally got a judge's order to abate the property. So they didn't just get to run out on people's private property, because, again, we used to always see the grows on public land. You had tons of federal resource. This is private property. You got a whole new set of problems. But they were able to abate that. See the squares on that in the white, the chalky white thing? Maybe I can kind of make that bigger. And it looks like it's all divided. Well, you'd be interested to know, those of you who give a rip about the environment, that those squares are made, those are subdivisions that he did by himself. You know, just get your piece of paper and you want to, okay, you know, and they just number them all for the water trucks. But that's all ground scraped bare like the moon. And that's all bermed up juniper and trash that makes those division marks up there. I've shown these pictures a lot of times. I showed them to our staff before we ever went out there. I've been out here like 8 different times. I took them out there. Every single person was blown away. They'd seen all my pictures and they still could not believe what it looked like when you were on the ground. So that will probably be, I don't know what qualifies for a Superfund site, but I don't know how you get rid of that level of chemicals and all the rest of it. That's it a little bit closer, and probably about 2 years ago. That's when they were growing outside. But I mean, if any of us went home and did this to our property, I would hope that the county would drop a net over us and make us stop until they figured out why we were doing something that crazy. So, the erosion, just all of it is a complete disaster. There's another look at it. This I thought was important. We got this during the fire. The little finger, the little red finger that kind of sticks up there, that's the only place the fire went. The squares that are a army green color, they are public land. So that's why there's nothing on them. Notice how close it is. It's like right to the edge of the public land. It's all private property. So they didn't burn down much of the groves, needless to say. So all the ballyhooing about, how the groves were all decimated and the sheriff tried to burn them out. He's either really bad at burning them out or the fire just didn't go that far. I'm going to say it was the second thing. But the little green dots all over the place, those are greenhouses. And they did this from the air because they were not able to go in there and do any of the assessment after the fire because they were shot at and had rocks thrown at them and everything else. So it was too dangerous, so they did it all from the air, and they mapped all the greenhouses. Can you imagine? The little square, like where the finger runs, is about 6 square miles. So when you kind of do the math, this is one place in the county. This isn't the place, it's just a place. And how do you go after all that? Code enforcement, all these little dots, here's another little gem. The little orange dots are all what the sheriff's office calls like shotgun shacks. They're the little shacks with the 5-gallon buckets that are used for bathrooms. And nothing about any of this is legal. There's no permit for anything. And when you try to do code enforcement, this is kind of where I think the public needs to be really aware or somewhat sympathetic that this isn't as easy as it looks. Because when you go after, pick a spot, you're gonna go after this little chunk right over here that is all owned by one guy, you think. So you're gonna go do code enforcement. Well, these people actually have a company, they have multiple companies, but one in Phoenix that does nothing but roll the title. So they just continue to roll the title. Well, how do you catch up with someone on code enforcement if they're rolling the title? You can never find the owner. You also can't serve a search warrant. There's tons of things you cannot do when you can't find the owner of the property. So that is a huge, huge problem. The way they kind of got them, I guess if I was, I'll skip to I don't know what my time looks like, but traffic crime. The growers are taunting citizens in the streets now, which is fantastic, posting things online about how they want to kill them all and burn their town down. Terrific. The defense is always race baiting, and that's what's supposed to slow law enforcement down. It's lawsuits and race baiting. And I'll be real straight with you. You should talk to the county board. Ray Haupt was kind of the tip of the spear on this thing, and the county council told him, you can't do this, you'll get sued. And he said, I worked for the Forest Service for 30 years, got sued a lot, still got to do it. We can't just let the county just get destroyed. And they got sued. So they're moving through that. But it does happen, and it will happen to you too. The idea is that they scare them into being because they were called racist, and then everybody, because that's what happened last time. This is what happened a few years ago, and that's how it got this big. Was they got kind of backed down because it was a race issue. It's not a race issue. It's not a marijuana issue. It's an organized crime issue. How do you put up that many greenhouses with people who just came to the country and are trying to be farmers? Like, how does that work? Because that's not possible. You can't put something up you can't put that much up that fast unless somebody is fronting it. So you have that. These are just like a few other clips along the way. I wanted to, so look at how close they are. Nobody is looking at this as a long-term home situation, and I'd be happy to get any of these pictures to anybody. I included one of trash just because it was taller than I was, and I thought, wow, that's really monumental. But that's what they do. They scrape everything down. They throw it either in a pit, in a pile. They don't burn it. They just let it sit. Here's my favorite. Dianne Feinstein's aide was there at the time I was looking at this the second time, and she saw the Doughboy pools, and she said, hey, that's nice. I said, I haven't seen anything nice in about 5 hours. What are you looking at? She goes, well, they have a pool. I said, oh, you should go look in. And so this is the chemicals and the water storage and all the rest of it, but there isn't a Doughboy pool for a couple 100 miles, so, if you needed one, forget it. I know where they are, though. More trash. And it doesn't matter what kind of trash it is. Obviously, we're not worried about recycling, right? So we're just throwing everything. If it goes in a pit, great. But up there, the wind blows a lot. And so a lot of it is just blowing everywhere. It looks like Thunderdome, for those of you that are Mad Max fans. I'm always waiting for, Tina Turner and the midget to pop out of somewhere because you've got plastic. It's eerie. It's all dirt roads, and it's kind of like the ocean made out of dirt. The terrain there, it looks like a big flat valley, but it isn't. It's got these hills, and so you've got these people driving super fast all over in here. You can't figure out where you are. It's a little spooky. And then you've got plastic blowing everywhere, and it's not a place you would actually, oh, here you go, there's the berms. I didn't take a picture for you. That's what is making the squares on that early picture. That's what the county is going to get to deal with, because now the property belongs to the county. And there are people, of course, screaming and yelling, oh my God, the county has confiscated private property. They're monsters, you know, the Constitution, yada, yada. They're like, everyone breathe. We're hanging on to it just long enough so the drug cartels can't get a hold of it again and put their whole grow operation together. Because they'd go in, they cut all the plants down, and the thing is right back in business the very next day. I mean, it's like sticking your finger in a glass of water. So if the plan is to go eradicate pot plants, you really should save your effort, because it really doesn't work, and you're laughing because it's totally true. It feels good and it looks great. Everybody sees them all mounded up on a truck, and look at all the marijuana we eradicated. Yeah, well, behind you, there are a bunch of little people, you know, running back and forth. But when they did the water ordinance and they cut the water off, that was a real blow. They didn't see that. They didn't see them really doing it, I think. They had no backup plan for that. The growers didn't. So they cut the water off. They pinch pointed them on A12, and the sheriff told the businesses that Tractor Supply up there is the top grossing store in the entire United States in a town with 7,500 people. Explain that to me, how that works. So they were making a fortune, and the sheriff went to them and said, look, we see you delivering out there. If we see your trucks delivering, we're going to confiscate it because it's in furtherance of a crime. And they said, thank you. We didn't want to be in furtherance of a crime, but we were scared to say no, and we didn't know how to get out of it. So you have the water guys, one of the water guys, you're looking at in that section there, the water that's being trucked was just shy of 10 million gallons per day, pumped out of ag wells and purchased illegally with cash. I always wonder, you know, how do you get slightly in business with a drug cartel? So you used to be a hay grower, and now you're starting to sell water to a drug cartel who's giving you, the one guy, $13 million last year. 13 million. He bragged to his family. I mean, nobody, and I know you're all thinking it, where's the IRS? Yeah, we're still asking that question. Because if I had $13 million illegally in cash, I don't know where you put that, actually. I think it's probably kind of big. They would be at my house, I think. I'm kind of hoping they would be at my house. So I'll go back to the beginning just so you can kind of feast your eyes on what that looks like. 2 years, just 2 years. And they've gotten really good since then, really good. And I guarantee you, if we match the names on properties up there that have come and gone through the assessor's office, I promise you they're on property here. So what they look for is a subdivision. That subdivision out there in Mount Shasta Vista was formed in 1965 and had no water. It was out kind of in the middle of nowhere, didn't really take off, so the land was cheap. And they bought it. The requirements of the subdivision say, got to have a permitted house, have to have a permitted well, have to have permitted septic. Didn't do any of those things, and now want to claim, but it's our property. It's like, well, okay. And then a lot of the attorneys, they've got a ton of money, so they've got a lot of lawyers. They have a lot of people helping them. They have a lot more resource than our counties have. And so the tough part is when it gets big like that, when it turns into that, the resources that you need to go after that are kind of, I mean, it kind of makes everyone panic. You don't really know where to start, because how do you start with that? You start at one end and work your way across. It's big. So we have to make sure that doesn't come here, because I guarantee if they were in Trinity County, they were in Siskiyou County, the odds that they're not going to come here are zero, really zero. That's just silliness that they're not coming. And by the time they are here, because what they do is they buy up the property, they buy it all up, everything is going, everything's ready, and then boom, it looks like that. And then you're stuck. But then your citizens start getting threatened. Then all that stuff happens. I had one lady called me. She said, I had a woman show up at my porch, bloody and dirty in the middle of the night. screaming for help. I live in the middle of nowhere. I opened my door, and before I could even figure out what she needed, 2 vehicles pulled up with men with guns who jumped out, grabbed her, and dragged her off my porch. And that's an hour away from us. This isn't in Mexico. This isn't in wherever you think of horrible things happening like that in scary movies. That's right up above us, and it's coming. So did I forget anything? The titles, the DA's case was pivotal. So there were 4 big kingpins they found, and they were able to roll up 1. They were able to get all of his property. I would have Stephanie call the district attorney up there and have Kirk Andrus give her, what information. We've got to start sharing. Everybody's reinventing the wheel. They did ordinances. They tried to be nice. These greenhouses, just in case anyone's confused, or from the olden days, they don't harvest once a year. There is no harvest time. There are 2 spines of poles, and on the inside spine is black plastic down the middle that goes down, and then the next structure above it, the other one, is like an opaque plastic that just lets the sun in, allows them to hold in all the chemicals and all that and keep the wind from blowing on it and whatnot. But when they're ready to harvest, they drop that black plastic, boom, they have a crop. They're pulling 3 crops a year off each one of those greenhouses. They never go away. So they don't just roll in and then grow and then harvest and disappear. That's 24/7. They have run for city council. The people in the cartel. This straddles 2 supervisorial districts. They're looking to take them out. They want to take over, and I'll tell you, I can tell you what I know that I didn't hear from another person. I met with a group of people 8 years ago, kind of against my will a little bit. I said, okay, I'll go and see what you have to say, but I don't think we're doing whatever it is you want to do. And their plan was, we want the congressman to help us make our own town so we can make our own rules. And that was when that was this big, tiny, 8 years ago. And they said, we want our own town so we can make our own rules. And I said, well, it doesn't really work like that. We don't make towns, thank goodness. The federal government shouldn't make towns. I said, but if we could, we're not making one for you because this is not good. And we're not on the team. That's not our deal. But that's what they want. They want autonomy and they want control. So when you look at plus or minus 10,000 people growing in a county that has 44,000 residents, they have enough people to roll them. They really do. We're not far behind. I mean, we have some bigger cities, but we're not far behind. And with that kind of momentum, we get there really fast. We're 6 months. It'll take them 6 months to do that here. They're really good at it. They're pouring in from Minnesota. Not a huge amount of illegal alien thing. We don't know because ICE can't be involved. You have none of those resources. But enforcement is difficult, has to be organized. And the sheriff, I'll tell you frankly, he had told me early on, because he's new. He was appointed a year ago, October, I think. October, November. He just turned 36 years old, so it's not like he's an old man with like loads of experience, but he grew up in Dunsmuir, and he said, you know what, this is destroying my county, and I'm not going to have it. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he goes, I don't know, but it's going to have to be like shock and awe. And I'm like, yeah, shock and awe, that's good. And they did. They did the water ordinance. They had it all timed out. It was no like little hit here, hit there. They sent a really clear message. We are not tolerating this. Businesses, we're not tolerating you furthering crime. Everybody needs to get serious on this. And so far it's working because there's a lot of anger and I'm hoping not a lot of violence coming up there, but I hate to say it, but I would not be shocked. You should see the messages on Facebook. We need to kill these white people. We need to show them what it's like in the old country back in the 70s. We need to burn down their city. I mean, all this stuff's being posted publicly, and that's the kind of reception people are met with. They have a guy doing a hunger strike. I like to end with something funny. I'd like the whole thing to be funny if I could. Sorry, it's not very funny, but. They have a guy up there doing a hunger strike. You've probably heard about him. Okay, the funny part of the hunger strike is he's protesting in front of the wrong courthouse. He's in front of the courthouse where the court holds court, but not where it would be like protesting like in the front of that building instead of in the front of here when they're protesting your ordinance. He's in the wrong place. And he's drinking protein shakes and drinking Gatorade and getting checked on by county health every day. So it's probably not going to be in peril. We don't have to worry about him too much. But they start trotting out all that stuff, and we have that to look forward to because that is always part of it. But if you can get a grip on one piece of it and tell them that our county's closed, if it's just like the Bible, right? We got to put the blood on the doorway, maybe they'll go by us. But if we don't send a really clear signal, they'll do that because they want to. And anything our office can do, obviously, we're in for it. So if you want my slides, any way we can help, we're there to do it. So please don't be shy or think you all have to do it yourself. And honestly, I have no problem sharing this with the public because the public sometimes wants a fix today and they don't really understand all the moving pieces with private property that are involved. So I would be very happy to work with you like I did with those guys up there and at least be a good source of information when people call us. So thanks very much. Maybe shut the lid.
Thank you. Aaron, if you don't mind, I'd like you to stick around. We're going to open public comment right now, but there may be issues that people want to direct specifically for you. So once we get through the public comment, then I might have you come back up with Assistant CEO McGreeny, and we can work through some of that. So thank you.
And Chair Kameni, I just want to thank Erin personally. We spoke on Monday and voila, here she is. So it just kind of happened quickly, but I appreciate you coming. I think it was really imperative. 2 weeks ago, I saw exactly what you just showed in those pictures because I travel Highway 97. And I even said to my husband, I said, what the heck happened here? And it was because I've been traveling that road for 42 years. And that is for real. And it is really happening in Siskiyou County. I've seen it.
So thank you, and I'm going to open public comment. We'll start with Betty Sutter, and John Dokes is on deck.
That was kind of a tough act to follow. My husband and I live on the last 15 acres of the original 360-acre ranch that his folks bought in 1926 in the Inwood area. We still maintain the same pre-1914 water right that they used to irrigate the original ranch. Over the years, as people moved in, we've had to share the water and have always been able to do that. Even in drought years like this one, we have all done our best to conserve water, and we have all made it through without devastating losses. Everyone takes their percentage of the water, whether the ditch is full or half full. At least we all get some. However, in recent years, we have several people who have decided that if a private irrigation ditch runs through or close to their property, they have the right to use it. Or they are taking water above legal diversions and therefore reducing the amount of water that is available to those who do have legal diversions. This is not a legal assumption, and it is becoming more and more of a problem. The majority of these borrowers are doing so to irrigate their illegal marijuana grows. We are required by the State of California Water Board to measure our water weekly and report to them how much we divert on a yearly basis. To not do so subjects you to heavy fines. Putting in measuring devices is a costly project, but those of us who have legal diversions have done what is necessary to accomplish what is required and have eaten the costs. Illegal users come under none of these requirements, but they use our water at will with no consequence. This needs to stop. Besides the theft of water, there is a lot of vandalism that is happening and has been costly to those victims and in some cases devastating. There have been many calls to the Sheriff's Department, the State Water Board, and Fish and Game, but the problem still exists. We realize we are a small part of Shasta County, but in listening to others in the Shingletown area, it appears that the criminal element is becoming more rampant in the whole of the Shingletown area, not just our Inwood area. The legal water users are becoming more and more frustrated and feel they have nowhere to turn to get help. What we're seeing is the beginning of a vigilante attitude and that is probably not something that should be allowed to develop. But people are tired of having their water stolen, their property vandalized, and no one seems to care. Where are we supposed to turn for help? Mark Twain once said, "Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting." He was right way back then, and it's still true today. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Dokes. Joe Dokes, followed by Tom Barner.
Chairman Trementi, I have a number of posters today
Okay.
with the public that we would like to show the board.
Sure.
When the board has had the opportunity to fairly look at them, you can just tell me and we'll have them taken down.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Could I have all those people in the audience that have posters, could you come up, please, and just stand in front of the board for me, please?
Yeah, for us to look at.
Yeah, you can stand up there. Yes, sir. And Chairman Trementi, could you reset my clock and I'm ready to start?
Sure, can we start back at 3 minutes, please?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
We dedicate our 3 minutes to the men and women of the Shasta County Sheriff's Department and to all the citizens and victims of marijuana crime. This week culminated in our surveillance flight over the county and seeing unfettered and unenforced illegal organized crime grows in every neighborhood. The board has our white paper submission for dealing with organized drug purveyors in our midst. Today, we submit the Supreme Court decision Oliver v. U.S. on how to successfully go after the grows. One grow this week stood out as a glaring example of the failure of every county agency to address organized crime operating freely here. In southeastern Shasta County, there was once a beautiful vineyard with a dream. It employed 37 county residents with good-paying jobs and brought $1.5 million in taxable revenue to our coffers. After dealing with oppressive regulations and onerous county officials, the vintner moved on. He has been replaced by an apparent Asian organized crime lord. What makes this grow particularly egregious is this board allowed a supposed expert on hemp and who apparently is a felon to stand in front of us promoting hemp while attached to this grow. Ultimately, after the circular firing squad of finger-pointing by the board and other county department heads, the responsibility for not dealing with organized crime pot, the nexus comes down to one person seated here today. This person has never been alone in a traffic car at night in western Shasta County, considering a traffic stop where 1,000 pounds of hypo pot is being transported off Mary Mountain by heavily armed Mexican cartel members. This person has never consoled a crime victim whose home has been targeted by marijuana growers. This person has never been a deputy and had to tell marijuana victims, sorry, we can't do anything, and just so you know, it's too dangerous for us as law enforcement to respond to that area. This person has never had to be a school resource deputy at any of our schools and watch our youth stoned out to oblivion. This person has never had to be an employer who cannot find workers who don't get high. This person has never lived on Siemens Gulch trying to raise a 15-year-old not exposed to cartel growth surrounding him. This person has never had to drug test DUI offenders watching 50% of them use marijuana. This person has never lived in Big Bend watching a waterfall go dry and had to deal with cartel members laying polypipe across his property to drain the water source. This person has never stood at a grave site at the Veterans Cemetery looking at the illegal organized crime grows a quarter-mile away. In closing, I have this to say. On the first day, having a new sheriff's trainee, I handed them 2 pieces of paper. In one hand, I held the department's motto, a tradition of service, and in the other, a McDonald's application. I said the choice was clear. You either serve the people or you don't. Today, to that person seated in front of me, I have a McDonald's application. It is my respectful opinion you should be detailed to see what your failure to perform has done towards the ruination of this county, and come with us for an ultimate dose of reality. God bless our deputies. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tom Barner, followed by Kathy Grindstaff.
Good evening. I will address my background, the history, the problem, and solution in 3 minutes. I'm a 35-year veteran of the Shasta County Sheriff's Department. I have worked under 4 sheriffs. I have worked side by side in the field with Eric McGreeny. I have the utmost respect for all these men. I have worked 20 years as an investigator with the marijuana team. During this duration, I investigated thousands of marijuana cases. I worked with local, state, and federal agencies. I also worked very close, hundreds of hours, with Mark Pelote, our code enforcement officer of the county. I held this position until late in 2016, when I was informed directly, face-to-face, by Tom Basenko, telling me that the team was being disbanded. At that time, the team had a handle on the marijuana cases in this county. It was a shock and surprise to me as well as the team. I asked Tom, why are we being shut down? And he told me it's at the discretion of county council. When I asked Tom why, he said because county council is afraid of lawsuits. There has not been a marijuana team in Shasta County for 5 years. Shasta County Code Enforcement has one person to handle the thousands of marijuana violations complaints. One person. In 2014, the citizens of Shasta County voted for a marijuana ordinance to help control illegal marijuana growing in the county. In 2016, the county adopted an ordinance prohibiting all outdoor growing. In 2018, Proposition 64 passed, allowing only 6 plants indoors. Our Shasta County ordinance prohibiting all outdoor grows prevailed. It's a good ordinance. But that being said, it is not being enforced, it has no bites, and it provides no accountability to the criminal element. There has not been one marijuana violation administrative hearing since 2018, not one. 4 long years. Are you aware there has not been one case that has been submitted by code enforcement scheduled for a hearing anytime in the future? Not one. Give me 2 minutes.
You have 30 seconds, sir, and you can take a little more if you need it.
Okay. It all points back to the directions given by the heads of departments by county council. Very recently, I've been told by Sheriff's Administration personnel as well as deputy sheriffs that Mr. Cruz told Sheriff McGreeny to stand down when it came to enforcing marijuana violations in this county. It is well known within the county that, Mr. Cruz, you are afraid of lawsuits. You have put the protection of the Board of Supervisors above the protection of citizens and victims of crime in this county. You hamstrung both Sheriffs Basanko and McGreeny. I hope you don't try to take this course of action with Sheriff Johnson. Allow the sheriff, district attorney, and code enforcement to do their jobs. If lawsuits come, Mr. Cruz, do your job. Don't run and hide from your responsibility to the citizens of this county. Do your job. If you can't, resign. Mr. Pawnees, you saw firsthand what is really going on. Your words, this is a third world country. Thank you for taking a look. I know you have a plan. It's a good plan, but don't wait to implement it. You have been presented with 2 good cases. Please don't wait. Act now and send a message to those threatening our citizens, destroying our environment, and stealing our water resources dry. It's a felony. You have the responsibility, the authority, and the power to take back our county and protect our tax-paying citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for the knowledge, Kathy Grindstaff is up. Rick James is next. I just want to let the audience know in this particular case, because this information is all very new information, at least certainly to me. And I want people to reasonably have the time they need to say what they need to say. And as long as it doesn't become filled with vitriol and anger and accusations, which I understand frustration but are not beneficial to what we're trying to accomplish, I, as the chair, am certainly fine with allowing you to say the things that we need to hear so we can all, as a community, so we can all address this. So, Kathy, you're up, and Rick James is on deck. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was actually paying attention. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Chair Commenti. I just want to briefly respond to the comments that were just made by Mr. Barner. First of all, I want to make it very clear. I have not had any conversations with Sheriff Basanko about disbanding any law enforcement groups or otherwise, and especially not the marijuana eradication team. If that was his decision, that was his decision to make. My job is not in any way to prohibit or impede enforcement aspects. If the sheriff wants to enforce marijuana laws, he does it in the best way he can with the resources he has. And I will do everything in my power to ensure that he does so in a lawful manner. My job is to provide legal advice. I have also provided assistance to resource management throughout this process, and again, in connection with the resources they have available to do this abatement. I have never, I repeat, never stood in the way of law enforcement or resource management from doing their jobs. And if we have consistently, and I will continue to provide legal defense to this county if they get sued and when they get sued. My job is to minimize liability. But at the end of the day, policymakers decide how they will enforce those laws, not me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Ball.
Yeah, Chairman and Committee, thank you so much. Tom, I just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. I was blessed with a past eradication trip with you and got to watch you at work with your entire team, and you were hauling stuff away by helicopter. And folks, I don't know if you understand what this means. This man, I called him Mr. Marijuana in the county. This man oversaw the removal and eradication of more marijuana illegally grown in Shasta County, I believe, than any other man that exists in Shasta County today. I just want to thank you personally and give you a round of applause.
Thank you, Supervisor. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Grindstaff. We have been coming before you for months. We have done the whole 10 copies. We have trying to, I think our focus is the education. So I don't feel like we have ever not done that part of our job. I was asked to be interviewed both by Channel 12 and by Channel 7, and one of the things that they really wanted to know was what do you expect from this meeting? I am ever so grateful that you finally have a meeting specifically about this issue, because it is a huge issue. We've been telling you this for months. These people in the audience are coming before you who have been afraid to do anything else. They are afraid to go and enjoy their own property because of the intimidation. What do I want out of this meeting? We all want action. We don't want to wait like, oh, well, we'll meet in 2 weeks and discuss this. We need that plan, Mr. Pontes. We need to see what the plan is, and we need to move forward, because we can't, like Aaron said, these people are so organized, so well equipped, so funded, that no matter what we do, they're going to be quicker and faster if we don't get a handle on this now. So whatever tools that we can do, whether it's a water ordinance or increasing our law enforcement, having that special eradication team, adding to our code enforcement, we need to do it now. Not tomorrow, not next week. We need it now. We all want our county back. We can't go out there and say, oh, come to Shasta County, come enjoy our lakes, come enjoy our trails, when we're afraid to go outside. So what I want, what all of us want, is that action now. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick James, followed by Brent James. Rick, followed by Brent. Please.
Hello, my name is Rick. I'm a longtime Shasta County resident, a local building contractor, and a property owner, as well as a car fire survivor. I am also a volunteer with the Shasta County Search and Rescue. I want to talk about Mary Mountain. I will start out with some history that I discovered through the Shasta County Historical Society. In the late 1880s, Mary Camden, the daughter of Charles Camden, lived in what is now the historic Tower House. She would ride her horse on what is now Mary Mountain Road to the peak of the mountain. She asked her dad for the mountain as a gift for her 16th birthday, and they named it Mary Mountain. In the 1930s, Mary Mountain was sold to a gold mining company, and they named the company Mary Mountain Diggers, which changed the spelling from M-A-R-Y to M-E-R-R-Y. Today, the first part of Mary Mountain Road crosses through the Whiskeytown NRA. Mary Mountain has had a long history of marijuana gardens causing environmental damage and safety concerns. One of our experiences was on Thanksgiving Day. My family and friends were going to our property to enjoy a day of target shooting and enjoy our meal afterwards. After going through the gate at 299 while we were still in Whiskeytown NRA, we came upon a truck and a Mercedes parked along the road. They were loading pot from the truck into the trunk of the Mercedes. They immediately stopped as we approached, and as we passed on the single-lane dirt road, the grower pulled a firearm, pointing it at the passenger, my wife, in the window, and followed our truck several yards until we had passed by them. Little did they know we were heavily armed. More recently, a neighbor and subcontractor of mine who inherited property next to ours from his grandparents went to explore his property. He was immediately met by a person with a rifle who walked him back to his truck, told him to never come back. How ironic, this subcontractor of mine owns a security business here in town, and he does business for the county. So as you can see, the posters, the cartel are armed and guarding their gardens, and the red dots on the posters signify the gardens that are on the map. Because of this, I am always armed when I go to my property. How long do you think it's going to be before a shootout happens between the cartel guarding their gardens and the property owner guarding his property? It's not if, it's when. It has come to this point because of the failure of different agencies that have not done their job. I have contacted the Shasta County Sheriffs, which gave me a case number, Whiskeytown NRA, who referred me to Fish and Wildlife, where they told me to call the 1-800 number, and then I've talked to Shasta County Code Enforcement, who said they would talk to the sheriffs. It just goes into a circle. What do you think Mary Camden would think of her mountain today? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before, Brent, before you come up, Supervisor Baugh, have him with a question? Or? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brent, and followed by John Oakes.
So I'm Brent. I grew up here, obviously the son of my dad here, on the same family property. I wanted to go into the same property that we've now had our game cam pictures of armed cartel members, body armor. We have the above ground pools as mentioned. I thought that was a new thing. Obviously, this is existing tactics. I'm currently working with the Department of Agriculture to try and rehab and reforest our property following the car fire, but it's too dangerous to go up there now to even get our forest management plan completed. So I tried to do some research, same as Dad. Who do we talk to? The tip line, CENTIF, sheriffs, Park Service, anybody we could. Everybody says nothing they can do about it. It goes in a circle, comes back. So I looked up what county ordinance is. It's very clear that it is illegal to grow in Shasta County outside. However, no one seems to be able to do anything about it. So I'm wondering what would happen if we were to get in trouble up there, or like Dad said, end up in a shootout. Would the county have liability because they weren't enforcing their own? If the county is worried about lawsuits, but they won't enforce their own rules, and then something happens because of that lack of enforcement, who owns the negligence for that? Thanks.
Thank you. And John Oakes, followed by Jim Davis.
I just want to talk to you. I have a question. Why are we here? Why are we having this meeting today? Why do we have to have it today? Matt, your opening comments, I appreciate a lot. But you know we're going to hold you to it, okay? And you should expect that, right? Officer Joe, Kathy have been talking to you for months. I've been sitting in and watching and listening to their statements. They've done some incredible research, but it has had no impact on this body, this county, this law system that we have in this county. I've been here for 34 years. I've met every one of you. I know who you are, excuse me. But why aren't we getting action? Where is the system in place where we can get results? What you talked about in Trinity County, they had the tipping point. Where's going to be our tipping point? Will it be too late? Trinity County doesn't look like eastern and western Shasta. I was on the ground at Trinity County. I was invited by the sheriff to participate in the sweep. I saw how friggin' nasty it was. Dirty, filthy, ugly, ground being desecrated. there was cameras all over. And we worked side by side with multiple law enforcement agencies, safely and collaboratively. Why were they able to work collaboratively when we don't have collaboration in this town and in this county? I don't think 3-0 is appropriate for approval for anything. It's about time that you guys get together and we have a 5-0 on making critical decisions. There's people out here that have a lot to offer in terms of knowledge and insight, wisdom and strategy. We should have at least 2 representatives, not downtown people, from this county out of every district to participate in some of the strategy and the thinking to make resources happen to get the job done. When I was up in Trinity County, there was 5 law enforcement agencies working together. The county roads department had trucks. The farmers had Caterpillars with big 12-foot blades on them. There were backhoes. It was a team of people working collaboratively together to get results to say no. When are we going to take back the narrative, folks? Are we going to give the narrative away to the cartel and their minions? Or are we going to control the narrative? And will the press even support the narrative? I think it's important that we start to think collaboratively in a way that we can get results. Not a lot of good intentions. There's too many good intentions. I've heard people say, I've been there, I've called, they've called back, and all that kind of stuff. But you know, Leonard Modi signed this petition in 2019, and you had a 4-1 vote on it, Leonard. Why hasn't anything been done with this petition, this ordinance? We've got ordinances out of Yang Yang that people have talked about, but these ordinances are not accomplishing anything. They're just pieces of paper with signatures on them and voters. It doesn't make us feel good. It's time that we have something that will cause us to work and collaboratively work together. Otherwise, there's going to be change. And there needs to be change. And if you're not in it, you're going to take the heat. You should take the heat. That's what you get paid for.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Jim Davis, followed by Charlie Valentino.
You know, after listening to this, I'm going, gee, many Christmas. I have family in Trinity County that suits up and goes after these things. It's amazing. My name is Jim Davis. My wife and I own a construction company and also farm blueberries and garlic. Over the years, we've experienced, along with our neighbors, water theft, growers entering our property on our private drive to see if they can run through our property to chase people who are stealing their medical marijuana. The killing of 12 boxes of commercial, 15 boxes of commercial bees we rented for pollination of our blueberries due to improper chemical use by growers. The attempted intimidation from semi-automatic and automatic gunfire and structure fires and explosions caused by Honey Oil Labs and nearby properties. My hope is, and I'm not pointing at any one person who may or may not have been a part of the journey, but my hope is that you will pursue the illegal grows with the same commitment, collective resolve, tenacity, and financial investment you displayed, whoever that was, pursuing Anselmo, of which the end result is now most Shasta County property owners are now being punished for unpermitted structures that they didn't build. I'm included. And you showed the swimming pools. I had to pay a fee to take down a swimming pool so I could get solar. But this goes on without any resolve. So I'm hoping you guys will put some teeth into this thing. Sorry. I get angry.
You've got plenty of time, sir.
And I'm trying not to have a resolve that wouldn't be part of of purchase from one of the council members. Sorry. If you don't pursue these unpermitted, illegal grows with the same or greater effort you put into Anselmo, I'm beginning to wonder whose side you're on. Thank you.
Charlie Palantino, followed by Woods Woman.
I'm Charlie. I've lived on Flinders Ferry Road since 1994. In that time, I've seen what was a very friendly country neighborhood turn into a not so desirable place to live. The drug growers have established a foothold there, and the community atmosphere has all but disappeared. I will not travel on my own property without self-protection, and my wife feels the same way. Several nights this season, there's been both semi and fully automatic gunfire. Some people ask me, how do you know it's fully automatic? Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I spent 20 years in the military. I know fully automatic. Okay. People don't target practice in the middle of the night. It's been noticed by myself and others along the road, a large decrease in the amount of wildlife in the area, deer, squirrels, and a possible loss of a mama bear, the result being a cub only several weeks old sighted wandering by itself. Illegal grows are present, and the smell of marijuana is in the air. If they were legal grows, this odor would be filtered out. There has been an increase in the amount of vehicle traffic, especially at night and night hours. Several pickups with water tanks and tank-carrying trailers travel the road at all hours. As far as I know, nobody in my area has lost a well, so they are not drinking water resupply. It was reported in a local newspaper that paper delivery service would discontinue on Flinders Ferry Road and Big Bend roads due to delivery people being accosted by armed personnel, not law enforcement. Have secondhand knowledge that a UPS driver was also had an unfavorable run-in while trying to retrieve a misdelivered package. It was also my belief that some growers are collecting government benefits while having a very prolific tax-free business. There's a family in our area that has been in the apple business. They have 1,600 trees. They have 1,600 trees that, due to water being stolen out of Montgomery Creek for watering illegal grows, they will more than likely lose their trees and their livelihood. The acrid smell from the illegal grows have some people complaining of migraine headaches. Myself, I suffer with lung problems and cannot handle the acrid smell. In closing, I would like to say that people moved here for the country life and clean air. Due to the lack of drug enforcement, this is becoming a lost dream. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Woods Woman, followed by Wild Native. And for the record, I'm just reading these.
Good afternoon. I am Woods Woman. I live in Shasta County, about 36 miles east of Reading. I am here to request and demand that Shasta County be proactive to rid our county from illegal pot grows. They use our much-needed water and poison our wildlife. There are 2 such grows on my immediate area, one south of me on my road, and has well over 250 plants. This is a legacy grow. They use the water from Dickerson Creek. This denies landowners along the creek below of much needed water for their ranches. This has been ongoing grow area for several years. Every year the landowners lease the parcel to a new group of growers. From what I have witnessed, a new group comes every year. The landowner reaps the profits and the growers and trimmigrants make next to nothing. The second grow on our road is above us. This is also a legacy grow. It has hundreds of plants. They ran their well dry and drilled a new well to continue their growing. The well is just up the hill from us, and we are praying they're not draining the aquifer our well draws from. This also has been a grow site for several years. They bought the property specifically to grow. Both current sites have been rated before. Now they need to be rated and charged. We not have this continue. I refuse to live in fear from these people. I moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to retire in peace and not have to worry about dirtbags roaming our areas. I fear them more than the bear and mountain lion that roam our area. As a side info, neighbors up the hill had neighbors last year that were busted and 480 plants removed. I do not know if they are back. This year, 3 weeks ago, our gate tongue was broken and the lock that was welded to a heavy chain was broke off. Other homeowners fixed the gate and had a new lock welded on and keyed to our keys. I filed a vandalism report, but I can't find the report number. There are 7 full-time owners living behind our gate and currently 2 growers. We all, 7 households, get along and want to fight these dirtbags out and never to return. This statement does not reflect my anger and fear of this activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Wild Native, followed by Lizzie Diaz.
Good afternoon. I'm Wild Native. I don't use my real name because I fear the people that are near me will know who I am and will come. I don't want to be sitting in this county jail because I took care of that problem. I'm a Shasta County property owner, resident, and voter. I am here to request the County of Shasta enforce the marijuana cultivation rules and regulations. I live on a property that's approximately 37 miles east of Reading. When I purchased my properties 15 years ago, there were 0 marijuana cultivation operations in my general area. The property is 1 mile off the county road behind a locked gate on a shared private road. About 5 years ago, some property sold as 2 very large parcels. Every year since then, we have had multiple marijuana cultivation operations behind that locked gate. They have been eradicated before. They are known grow sites. They were developed illegally for marijuana cultivation. They are considered legacy grow sites. Why are they allowed to return each and every year? They steal the water from the creeks. They run their wells dry. Each year there has been significant alterations to the properties to enhance their ability to cultivate marijuana. This is done with 0 permits. I paid and followed every one of my permits to develop my property. They don't. This year a new fence is being put in with significant brush removal, and grading is required. During this operation, they set the hillside on fire. It is just down the hill from my property and my home. Their arrogance, because it's my place, I can do what I want, could have turned into a disaster for 7 other resident property owners. Most generally, I personally don't care what other people do on their properties. It's your business. But in this case, when it endangers my well-being, my properties, peace and security, I care. Last year, we had multiple people attempt to gain access to the properties in what appeared to be rip-off operations of the grow. It was fortunate that other property owners caught them attempting illegal access and were turned away. I personally thwarted 2 such attempts. I was not gentle about it. We take our privacy seriously. We do not mince words or actions. Myself and others should not have to defend our properties in that manner, because nothing has been done to deter the yearly cultivation of those properties. I returned to Shasta County to retire, to get away from drug and alcohol-related criminal activities. It appeared that I had found a safe haven. Shasta County appeared to have sensible cultivation regulations and a proactive enforcement community. It is far past time for the known and repeated illegal cultivation sites to be dealt with. I do not want to carry a gun on my property to defend myself against illegal activities around me. We have had squatters, land lease for grow operations, theft, threats to other property owners to mind your own business. We are done with that, period. We are done. It is past time to do something. None of us want to be doing what we pay taxes to be done. I am not a law enforcement officer. I am not a cop. Thank you for listening. Now do something.
Thank you, sir. Lizzie Diaz, followed by James Diaz. Lizzie Diaz, followed by James Diaz. I understand that. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Next speaker is Shining Cloud, followed by Nick G.
I hope you remember my face.
We do.
Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." So I'm asking, what are you doing? Not what are you saying? Mary Mountain is a historical place for the Native Americans. My grandchildren and I have found many artifacts, mortar and pestles, arrowheads, a number of other things. There are gravesites up there, abandoned gold mines and such. The waterways are polluted by the growers. They've stolen 3 of my water tanks. They have a generator and several hoses coming off my well, which I permitted and paid for legally by the book. They have above ground pools collecting my water for their grows that are polluting Clear Creek and Whiskeytown Lake. I know there's money for enforcement. We need to make that enforcement a priority. It was suggested that I wear a mask today so that no one would recognize me. I'm a school teacher. I've been teaching in the Reading area for almost 30 years. I have thousands of former students. They all know me, so it's silly to start hiding now. You mentioned August for your plan. I certainly wished it were several Augusts ago, but I'll be grateful for anything at this point, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm going to quote a scripture. I know Mary doesn't always enjoy these, but "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." 2 Timothy 1:7. I have to read that over and over and over. After Tuesday, because my face is exposed, I'm a retired school teacher. I'm a property owner. I pay taxes. I pull permits legally. I do everything. And then after Tuesday.
Go ahead, man. Keep going. You have all the time you need.
My family member was threatened and ran off the road because they know me. And my family is in jeopardy because I'm standing up for the people who live here now.
the people who will live here in the future, and for those Native Americans that lived here in the past. I beg you, please respect us and do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick G., followed by Carrie Rose.
Hi there, I'm Nick Gardner. I wanted to compliment Erin on her presentation and Officer Joe for all the work they do to expose this. You know, this is a bunch of crap. This isn't nothing new. You guys have known about it for 10 years. Certainly the sheriff has. And, you know, you're putting law-abiding citizens at risk of prosecution because they're to the point where they're going to defend themselves and their property at gunpoint. Somebody's going to get shot. And it's going to be on you guys because you didn't enforce the laws. That needs to change. We have government to provide public safety and services we can't provide for ourselves. I don't feel any public safety anymore. I pack around a gun 100% of the time because I don't feel safe on the streets of Reading. And now I'm almost afraid to go out in the forest where I want to recreate, where I've spent my whole life. And it's a very disappointing situation. So the biggest complaint I hear about law enforcement on anything, any issue, is we don't have enough money. I talked to our Senator, California Senator Brian Dahley's representative, and he told me that the state of California has $100 million to eradicate marijuana, but they don't want to cut it loose, blaming the Newsom administration. Why don't you declare a state of an emergency and sue them for some of that money? You know, we've got a lot of different agencies. We've got, for water theft, you've got the water agencies, you've got the environmental protection agencies, you've got the Forest Service, the state and the feds, you've got the Fish and Game, and you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think you ought to start squeaking. You need to stand up for us, and you need to get this straightened out, because like I say, some citizens are going to get in trouble, and it's not necessary. I'm not retired, I'm just damn tired, and I'm damn tired of the crime in Shasta County. So if you could do something about it, I'd certainly appreciate it, and I think the rest of the citizens would also.
Thank you. Carrie Rose, followed by Stan Newts.
Good afternoon. My name is Kari Rose, and I am a fifth-generation resident and third-generation teacher in District 3. Wow! I can talk to kids all day long. Can you guys just act a little
We're known for that.
less adult-like? As an educator, I tend to rely on analogies to teach. So let me make an analogy between your job and mine. It is my job to teach students a specific set of standards. I can't make them learn, but it's still my responsibility to teach them. In fact, the only evidence that I have for their learning is the results of the assessments that I give them. Really, the proof is in the pudding. If assessments show that my students have not learned, I can make excuses. I can blame the parents, I could blame the media, I could blame school lunches. That's easy. I can even blame the students themselves. But in the end, I have not been successful in doing my job. Excuses don't help my students learn. I have to find a way to do my job. Over the last 4.5+ years, I have heard plenty of excuses about why illegal marijuana grows have not been eradicated in Shasta County. And frankly, I have heard an astonishing amount of buck being passed all over the place. Mary and Leonard, you have both said that you can't make the sheriff do anything, but you do have the authority and, in fact, the unique ability to influence the sheriff's office. You have the power of the purse and the ability to publicly call into question the actions of any department, the sheriff and code enforcement. I've seen several examples lately of you influencing county departments. In fact, just this week, you asked staff to look into providing housing for a resident deputy. Good job. You could have publicly asked the sheriff's office to look into reforming a marijuana eradication team. You could have asked for reports on the status of enforcement of the marijuana ordinance. Did you say 2018 was the last time anything had come before code enforcement? That would have put the issue in front of the people and the local media. You absolutely have the power to influence this issue. In fact, you're finally doing it now. But please be aware that citizens will not take phone calls, meetings, and more talk about the problem as an actual resolution to the issue. It would be like me as a teacher saying, well, I talked to the school board about my lessons, I've made lesson plans, I have had parent conferences, but when I give the assessment, the real question is, did my students actually learn? So, what's your assessment? Well, those of us that are living in the midst of illegal grows are waiting to see actual results come from this recent public talk. What results are we looking for? Eradication of illegal marijuana grows immediately. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's time to start the meal. Maybe not elephant, though. Finally, I have great concern that Mr. McGreeny will now be in a leadership position in dealing with this serious issue. You yourselves have previously said that he was the reason, there's the buck being passed, for lack of enforcement. Is the fox going to be guarding the chicken house? Now, if I am missing something, I would like to hear publicly, loudly, and clearly his position from now forward on illegal marijuana in Shasta County. And I'm hoping to hear that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan Newts, followed by Nick. You already went once. I can't let you go again. Followed by Derek.
Good evening, Board. I'm speaking tonight as the president of the Shasta County Sportsmen. It's a hat I've not worn here before, but as a sportsman, I'm very concerned about hunting and fishing in what I call the B zones. This is really an old issue for us. We've talked to Fish and Game many times, and they've actually came out and given us their full-blown briefing. I would suggest that you actually get the briefing and see the deleterious effects of the grows on wildlife. It's killing our game. It's killing a lot of other non-game animals. It's destroying our environment. It's destroying our watershed. So please, I'll be more than happy there, Chairman, to give you the name of the Fish and Game coordinator to have them come and talk to you. They'll need about 20 minutes to do so. But it's an old issue with us. A very, very bad chemical compound that they use is called Firadan. I call it the Pepto-Bismol because it looks like Pepto-Bismol. It's very, very deadly. It kills pretty much anything that it touches. This is what they're poisoning the ground with. It came to our attention when one of our members harvested a B-zone buck. Instead of the tallow color when they broke it open, the field dressing, it was orange. So I personally will no longer hunt in the B zones or fish in the B zones unless it's in an alpine area above the growing area. So that's another aspect of what's going on out there is affecting our wildlife. The hunting and fishing rights that we've had and enjoyed are slowly going away. Now, a couple of other things, I've tried to stay on top of this issue to a degree, and I do talk to law enforcement periodically about it, but a lot of the Forest Service money that the Sheriff's Department used to get allocated, $100,000 to $1 million a year, this year they got $5,000. They got a total budget of $87,000 for only federal lands. In the past, there was funding up to $500,000 to $1 million to do the eradication. There may be a source there. Yeah, maybe Nick's right. Sue the state. If they've got $100 million to do it, let's do it. But the bigger thing here, too, is we need to try and get the sheriff more deputies. As four of you know, We worked very, very diligently in 2018, 2019, 2020 to get Measure A passed, which would have given Shasta County 20 more deputies and would have given the city of Reading about 23 more officers. That would have formed an extremely good eradication team. You would have had the boots on the ground. So we have to find staffing to do that. I know there's a movement afoot to try and get the jail that we worked on, but that's going to take a long time. I would suggest, based on what I've heard today, is we re-implement the marijuana eradication team as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Derek, followed by Stones.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for taking this time out of your evening for this special meeting. And thank you for getting the citizens and allowing the citizens a little bit extra time so that we can focus on this really, really important issue that we have out in front of here today. So illegal cannabis grow abatement should be supported and championed just as much as legal hemp and cannabis grow opportunities if administered correctly. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people who do not understand what this plant is, its potential, and try and control their fellow citizens' use and ability to grow. Currently in Shasta County, outdoor grows are banned and indoor grows are severely restricted, except for Shasta County or Shasta Lake City. I appreciate outdoor grows in those zonings. But these laws, they restrict your average American so that they cannot grow for themselves, which seem to discriminate against the poorer classes and does nothing but help proliferate the illicit market exponentially. The discussion of illegal cannabis abatement, industrial hemp regulations, and revising current cannabis regulations go hand in hand if we're going to grow this industry into a stable economic force. Continuing to demonize, vilify, and criminalize this industry will only strengthen the cartels. The more we open the industry up to the light, the less the shadows can cling to it. But we cannot do it alone, and it cannot be through cruel and unusual regulations like in Sacramento, where a homeowner was recently fined $500,000 for a renter's grow, which he never knew about, and yet the renter only got a $500 ticket. On average, legal hemp and cannabis normally intake the same amount of water per plant per day that tomato plants use, and using drip irrigation systems, it can be reduced to between 1 to 1.5 liters of water use per plant per day during peak production times. Hemp is defined by law as cannabis sativa L with a THC content of no more than 0.3%. So anything other than that definition is considered a cannabis plant. And through natural stress of growing, THC production ratios can fluctuate in hemp. So it makes it seem like there's cannabis growing in the middle of a hemp farm, but this is just by definition alone. To quote, the government's current approach is a half-in, half-out regime that simultaneously tolerates and forbids local use of marijuana, Chief Justice Clarence Thomas recently wrote. A prohibition on interstate use or cultivation of marijuana may no longer be necessary or proper to its piecemeal approach. A solution is better defining what an illegal grow is, supporting your citizens' right to grow it for themselves, fixing our failed Prop 64 with amendments, championing the current congressional cannabis descheduling bill, and making sure that the legal industry can bank appropriately. So why does California have such a bad illegal cannabis problem? Because to me, it seems that it's from bad regulations federally and locally that prevent free and open market capitalism from taking place and prevent a farmer's freedoms of choice crop under common sense regulations. To quote Justin Bieber, I got my peaches out in Georgia, I got my weed from California. Shasta strong, Shasta forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Stones. followed by Gavin Brown.
Hello there. So our new sheriff, whoever that might be, I really hope they talk with the Trinity County Sheriff in their last eradication activities. You heard from another gentleman earlier. There were citizens, law-abiding citizens involved in those eradications. A group of citizens came from this county to assist them. Those same citizens in this county will help our law enforcement do the eradications. Very brave citizens. They're willing to put their safety and security in jeopardy to protect this county. So I really hope whoever our new sheriff is explores that possibility. Our law enforcement can't do it by themselves. They know it and we know it, okay? We should never have enough cops around to take care of us, because if so, then we're in a police state. We don't want a police state, okay? The job is for these citizens to keep the county safe. Law enforcement assists with the judicial system, but it's a job of the citizens to keep the county safe. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to highlight one of the folks sitting up here today. This is a very legal process we're going to be going through. And unfortunately, I don't think the legal counsel you have is fit for the job. There are so many instances where that man, Mr. Cruz, has failed. He is a failure. He has harassed citizen journalists. He has advised county health personnel to harass us, intimidate us, block us from doing our freedom of press activities. When I records act that correspondence that he had with his county health employees, he says, sorry, protected work product, sorry, attorney-client privilege. He admitted that he had that correspondence with county health to interrupt freedom of the press. He admitted it and said, sorry, you don't get the documents. And then he had Facebook take down the Shasta County logo on our citizen journalist page. It's obviously not a government entity. And he cited a California Business and Professions Code that any 8-year-old can read and see that that did not apply to our situation. Strike two. And then when we asked for access, press access, I'm going to go after my 30 seconds. When we asked for press access into the Health and Human Services briefings, he denied us.
And sir, you can have all the time you need, but if you go on
if you
can go to the topic of marijuana.
This goes to his competency, because you are going to be asking for his counsel, and I'm giving you many examples how he is impotent in his job.
Please use your time wisely so everyone can learn about the marijuana issue. Thank you, sir.
What we're learning about the marijuana issue is that Mr. Cruz is the wrong man to be in that position for this marijuana eradication. He is not the right person for that job. Last Tuesday, give me 15 more seconds, last Tuesday's meeting, he told Lisa Mashad that judges and California attorney generals make law. Yeah, it's on the video. He says that's law. California Supreme Court decision is law, and attorney general opinion is law. He has no idea what a constitutional republic is and the separation of powers. He is the wrong man for the job.
Thank you, sir. All right, next person is Gavin Brown, followed by Chuck Knight.
Yeah, so I've lived in the Mill Creek subdivision in Oak Run for 23 years, and I've seen it get progressively worse and worse, but her presentation was a real eye-opener of how bad it's going to get. And it's getting there. They have their footprint up there. They got their feelers out, and it's really the movie analogy. It's like the postman meets the road. It's not just Thunderdome. And it's going to get much worse. And the other gentleman that was speaking about people having to defend themselves, either armed cartel henchmen, people running around up there with guns, guarding grows, and it's really crazy. And I really long for the good old days when just every once in a while something would happen, like my next door neighbor would get in a shootout with some bounty hunters. That was the good old days, and now it's really getting way beyond that. And I saw this gentleman's activities up there when they had 2 helicopters, maybe 6 or 8 agencies. There was Child Protective Services would be involved to get children from the people that had the illegal grows. There would be animal control to take their Rottweilers and pit bulls away. There would be dump trucks that looked like a Jiffy Pop with so much weed piled into the dump truck going out the switchback. And there would be 2 helicopters flying around with giant nets hanging underneath. And there would, they would actually go after them. And it worked, and it kept it kind of tamped down. But as the years went on and then the team was disbanded, it's gotten completely crazy, and she's shown me how it will look perhaps next season. It's coming up there where I'm at. And it actually is so bad up there that I had to get a secondary residence in Centerville and not stay at the Oak Run residence anymore, except going up to check and make sure they don't have parties and I'm not invited at my house. And it's just crazy, and I'm really appreciative of all the people that have come and spoke to you two gentlemen. Thanks.
Thank you. Chuck Knight, followed by Tim Fairfield.
Okay, thank you for letting me talk up here. I want to talk about personal stuff. One, I have a granddaughter, and most of us in here have children and grandchildren. My granddaughter now is 21. When she was quite a bit younger, we went to the 4th of July doings over there at the center, and somebody lit up a joint someplace. She's allergic to it, very allergic to marijuana smoke. Unbelievable. And our son-in-law, cop, we have 2 cops in the family, he comes, he says, we can't do anything, we're told, hands off. So that I appreciate you guys, which you make these laws, policies. Now, her lungs are inflamed almost all the time. Personally, she's not going to live beyond 40, maybe 30. She's going to die. And a big problem is this marijuana smoke. She was going to Foothill in Palisadro. She could not continue. Too many kids smoke. It's on on their clothes. She smells that. She goes to the hospital. She has to use EpiPens. She has all kinds of health problems. We know of 4 people who is highly allergic to marijuana smoke. You can ask me later if you want to know who they are. This is something and if you want to smoke your dope, hey, fine with me, but stay in your house. I think that's a law in the county. You can smoke your dope in your own house. You can't smoke it outside. And I would love to see that enforced. For her, it's a hazard health. She carries her EpiPens. Her embolizer, the stuff she goes on that all the time. Her activities are really restricted. She can't go out in public very often. She has to watch it. If you smoked this morning, and we found out in the extension school next to the sheriff's office, every now and then she'd come down, she had asthmatic problems, and the pot smoke kills her. And in school, man, every now and then we get a call. She has to go, she has to leave. Turns out some kid, instead of working out his own problems, he has to use pot in the mornings to calm himself. He was a school kid. And he would get up in the morning, take a shower, apparently a decent kid, go outside, smoke his joint, and then go to school with that smoke on his clothes. Think about that. The smoke on his clothes would set her off on a medical emergency. Sometimes hospital, sometimes clinic, depends how bad it got. Be aware there are people who are allergic to marijuana smoke. Smoke it in your house, that's okay. Poison your own kids, I don't care. That's your family. What was mentioned today, I really enjoyed the eradication program that took place in Siskiyou County. They took 40 people, men and women, from this county who had been vetted, and they took them up there, and they worked alongside with Congress and congressmen and law enforcement, the sheriff up there. Thank you, guys. Time goes fast.
Thank you, sir. Tim Fairfield, followed by Kathy Stainbrook.
Unfortunately, we're still part of the state of California. And to paraphrase our chairman, it doesn't matter what you think of the laws, it's what they are. So until you support the state of Jefferson, pot's part of daily life in California. Now, I grew up here, and this is your typical run-of-the-mill government-created problem. On one side, the only answer given is more money for the war on drugs. And on the other side is absolute neglect and to hand over the county to the cartels. There's never a middle here. That's always the option. Now, there is a will to enforce code when there's money involved. Just ask Anselmo. But when some people aren't getting paid off, then there's no will. And this is actually your typical government action. We've created a problem. It has gotten so bad that we're now overrun with cartels. Give us more money and power, and we'll do it right this time. We'll spend your money properly. You know, we won't use this money and power that you've given us against your regular citizens for, I don't know, lockdown enforcement or something down the road. The will is here to enforce the code if the board actually wanted to do that, but they don't. I would like to propose a split of the horns of this false dilemma. It's not, the only options are not more war on drugs or give the county to the cartels. We do need to get the cartels out of this county, but then what? What are you putting in its place? You're leaving a vacuum for the next problem. I would ask you to look beyond what is here now and look to what could be. You know, this is a crop. This should be an agriculture issue. You have farmers not doing things right, and you have illegal farmers. Make it easy for legal farmers. Make this a middle-class issue. You know, you're going to replace these cartels with what? I would ask you, replace it with thousands of little middle-class farmers, not massive grows or people doing, you know, bring your agriculture folks in there. You know, do this right. It's going to be here. Either support the state of Jefferson and get it out, or it's here and make this something doable. I appeal to your greed. The only time this government does not go after more taxpayer money is if somebody is getting paid under the table.
Thank you, Kathy Stainbrook. And I don't have any more cards, but if anyone would like to speak, please just get in queue and we go. Okay.
Good evening. I really appreciated what Aaron shared. That was super informative. Thank you. Gosh, and hopeful. So I know a log truck driver who shall remain nameless because everybody's afraid, and rightfully so. He was forced off the logging roads. His water truck driver he had just encountered was so shaken up, visibly torn up. The cartel in that area ruined Sierra Pacific's logging equipment at their loading docks. I don't know how much it costs, but the message was very clear. You say anything and we will kill you. A cement truck driver delivers to a cartel compound off Highway 36. He minds his P's and Q's. He goes in, drives in past several gun packing guards, delivers his load only to be paid thousands of dollars in cash, all cash. Now my sweet friend owns property where she can't enjoy. No one will assist her for some law and order, and this has been going on for 5 years. This isn't something that just happened last week. I used to work with a gal, I'm a teacher, she told me of her husband's job. he was a fish and game officer. She said he weekly, this was quite a few years ago now, probably 4 or 5 years ago. She said that he would be weekly repelled out of a helicopter getting shot at. They moved from Shasta County, and he said he was tired of getting shot at. Well, I was thinking, that is astounding to me as a fish and game officer. I can't even conceive of it. Now things are coming into focus. There were 4 murders directly related to drug cartel in Shingletown, and the sheriff looked the other way. Is someone on this board or the sheriff's department getting paid off? Is someone being threatened? I have lived here my entire life. Whatever is happening, change needs to happen. I don't know much. I just, have been kind of keeping my eyes and ears open the last year, and this seems pretty appalling. So, thank you.
If we have a speaker in chamber, Lori, you're coming up.
I'm Lori, District 4. I absolutely have to concur with the other individuals that were thanking Aaron Ryan. Your shows are compelling, awesome. I wish I had an award to give you for your program with We the People. I have listened to her programming. It's absolutely shocking, the documentation that she and Bill kind of have been putting together. I cannot thank you enough. Oh my gosh. Yeah, with Dr. Drum, is it? Sounds like a drum. Okay. I wasn't planning to speak, but after listening to the compelling people that were in support of Officer Joe and Kathy, who have been here forever and a day, alerting, warning, advising, suggesting, and everything possible, and yet here we are, like this is just the opening day, and we're just trying to figure out what should we do. I used to live in Whitmore, and yes, I'm aware of the term immigrants, and it has radically changed. I no longer live in Whitmore, but I'm in District 4. What I'd like to say is it's not just law enforcement or the Sheriff's Department or the main key people. We have the media that's complicit, whether they cover it a little bit or not at all, or get it wrong, mainstream media, fake news, misinformation, disinformation, that has not been sufficient. So I would like to say that, and this is why Richard Gallardo and myself, Lori Bridgeford, have had to volunteer our time to become Shasta County citizen journalists. We are overwhelmed with how much we get as far as phone calls, our whistleblower hotline. And Mr. Cruz, when we use the County of Shasta, California, that logo, I can't believe you sick the authorities on us for something that's anyone can use this seal. This is why that Fruit Loop Award happened a while back. We're very concerned about your...
Lori, stay on the marijuana issue, please.
It all goes together. The marijuana issue is related to incompetence and the media. Here's the cover story of the media. Are we talking about the illegal cartel growth? No, we're talking about the national stage with some fake comedian, satirist, and another guy. There's no news on this. See, what I'm saying is we're losing focus. There's other people involved, okay? So it's not just the media, and it's also public health. Where were they when the Zoom classes were happening in COVID? All these kids now addicted, vaping, medicated, sick, ill. See, I'm on topic, Joe. If you just let me finish and try not to interrupt me.
I'm letting you finish, Lori.
Thank you, and I would like a few more seconds added to my time. See, it's more than just the obvious involved people. Public health. You used to talk about bullying. Public health. You used to talk about safe sex and other issues with addictions. What did public health do? Focus exclusively on Fauci the flip-flop fraud. And after we've been telling them for ever since the year and a half I've been here, haven't missed one, by the way, unless you closed it and I had to be on the phone. When you did take phone calls, Chair Clemente, now they've been dropped. Posters, truth posters, some are allowed, some aren't. Mr. Modi, you took those away. That's called 1A, freedom of speech. All right? So we're having some very serious problems here. It is not just the illegal cartel grow. We know it's there. And if we don't start getting some absolute help, we don't want vigilantes, we don't want militia and other people to start to take it upon themselves because it gets so bad. Meanwhile, public health is all about the jab center, if it's your turn, and double masks, 2 masks, and all the rest. They've lost sight of their full scope job, and they're paid quite a bit. Karen Ramstrom, DO, you get $17,000 a month plus benefits. How many times do I have to keep mentioning that? So rather than, I would like to say defund the thought police, not the real police.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers in chamber? Any other speakers in chamber that would like to come up and speak? Seeing none, I will close the public comment.
Mr.
And I'll bring it back to.
I had one, remember?
Okay, yeah, but I've got.
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Jones is in queue, and
Okay.
see, I'm actually watching the queue.
Okay.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
I was testing you.
Thank you, Chair Clemente. So tonight, if you take a look at your staff reports, recommendations, take the following actions with regarding illegal cannabis cultivation, receive some presentations from Aaron Ryan, receive public comment period, or public comment, which we did, and now we can provide direction to staff. So I'm making a motion that we fully instate a fully funded marijuana eradication team.
And Supervisor, if I may, I think personally, I think that's a great idea. I'd like to hear what.
Would you like to second that?
I'd like to hear what our assistant CEO is saying, so we can get all the facts before we make a motion to do something. Just my personal opinion, sir. And go ahead.
I have comments, so I think the public comment's still open. And I have several people from Fall River Valley that I've talked to extensively over the last couple of years that were also, Aaron, very true. We have something's called the Alpine Subdivision at the base of Soldier Mountain. I was there Saturday evening. I drove back into that area, and she wanted to be able to share. There's another meeting in Fall River Valley. We're starting another fire safe council, so that group decided to stay up there and work on that project. But she sent a letter to all of us via email, and I hope that all 4 of you will read it and see that it's infiltrated just basically rural residential, nice little subdivisions. And our retired high school principal lives there. So with that, I just wanted to bring that to all of your attention, that you read that. And then I'm going to take off my hat as a supervisor and speak to the 4 of you as someone from the audience. First of all, as Aaron pointed out, we no longer run cattle off of A12 in the on Shasta Big Springs Ranch, in the Shastina area. It's I don't have to tell you why, but we don't. We had to find new pasture for that particular group of cattle that we put there during the summer. I want to say we have had on our own properties illegal marijuana grows, so I understand completely what you're talking about. We've had one eradicated near the mouth of Bear Creek and on Cow Creek. As a matter of fact, this was when we still had the eradication team. One of our sons was living there, and he had the SWAT team show up, and he had to explain to them, no, this isn't my grow. I have a college degree in agronomy, and I wouldn't grow such a lousy grow. He was very defensive. It wasn't, but he had to explain to him that he was not the problem. It was not his grow, but so he's actually been intimidated by law enforcement just because he lived there. They thought it was him, but it was not him. So we've had our own experiences. Also, when I served on the State Board of Forestry, and many of you have heard this, and so I apologize to repeat this, but this was brought to my attention as a board member on a state level, and I've been very aware of this problem, and I have been talking about it since I got on this board, and you know that, Leonard knows that. No, I have.
Quiet, please. We were very quiet while you were speaking. Please allow us to speak. Thank you.
I have. I talk about it. If you would stay for my board reports that I give at the end of every meeting, you would hear me talk about illegal marijuana grows. But most, as Leonard and I've talked about, you leave the board meeting so you don't hear me talking about them. I have been talking about this. Okay, let me finish.
Could you be quiet? Can everybody please?
I am
be
not,
quiet?
I'm not finished, and
Please be
I'm,
quiet, and the supervisor has the floor right now. So please, if you could keep your comments to yourself, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
and when I was on the board of forestry, there was a project, and Aaron is familiar with this. It was called GRAP. It was a proposal, Grazing Regulatory Action Program, and I got very involved with that because I was also sat on the RMAC board, the Rangeland Management Advisory Committee for the state. And so I had one of the State Water Resources Board control members come to Shasta County, and I had about 30 people there from Farm Bureau. I had Kirk Wilbur from California Cattlemen's Association. I had our UC Davis expert, and a lot of it was on GRAP, but I also included Tom Basenko in the discussion because I wanted her to understand that there is a serious illegal marijuana grow. We have cattle that drink out of the cow creek. We try to keep our pastures irrigated, but it's dang tough this time of year because the water upstream's being stolen. And we watch the monitors. My husband's here, he can tell you. We watch the monitors. So I am every bit as much a victim as the rest of you, and I am totally aware of this. And so I do feel your pain. I do understand it, and that's why I did go to Tom Basenko over and over and over again. And you can ask Eric McGreeny. I went to him over and over and over again. I have been hounding people about this subject for years because I have personally been impacted myself just as you have. And I will not rest until this problem is addressed. And that's all there is to it. I've talked to Joe. What do? Practically daily we email back and forth. So I will not rest. And I have seriously considered thrown out my hands, quitting as a supervisor because I have been so frustrated with this subject. I am just as frustrated as you are. And we experience it ourselves. Our lives have been impacted. We can't run cattle on ranches. Our water's being taken away. I don't know if I'm safe wandering around our ranches. I have a marijuana grow across from our ranch out of Anderson right now. I deal with it too. So I want you to know that I do understand it and I feel your pain. And that's why I have been so persistent in nagging about having this meeting and that we are finally here. And I want to thank you all for coming. And I think that we're going to make some progress. It's going to take some time, but we have to work together and we have to quit pointing fingers and we got to move forward and get something positive done.
Mary, would you like to second my motion?
Well, I think we need to hear from Mr. McGreeny first.
We have in queue, we have Supervisor Modi, followed by Supervisor Jones, followed by Supervisor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a question or two of Aaron, if you don't mind, if I come back. I appreciated your presentation. You had a lot of great information. You certainly described the situation up there very well. I've had multiple conversations with Ed Valenzuela. Has described very clearly all the things you have. And I agree with your comments that it takes a group effort by everybody to come together and do this. My question to you, I guess, and it's not meant to try to put you on the spot, but were the feds able to help up there? And if so, what were they able to bring to the table to help the local agency? And can we get that help here if that's the case?
Oh, well, we're not trying to be stingy with it. Okay, so, I don't know if the public can appreciate it. I think everyone knows this, kind of, but we have to acknowledge it, that the FBI should be having a listening post up there. They should be following all of the traffic that these people are doing, all the text messages, all of the communication. We should have Treasury following all the money. Are they doing that? We've told them to do that, but of course it's secret. Okay. So we don't know if they're doing that.
Is that the same with the FBI too? You talk to them, but you don't know?
Yeah, we provide all this information to them. They say that they're working on it. Okay. The one thing I can tell you, I don't like to tell you what I hear. I like to tell you what I've seen, really, because that's more accurate. I did meet with some FBI folks about something different, and I always bring that up. I mean, and by the way, is anybody aware, that there's a gigantic criminal cartel problem up north of us? And those guys were like, yep, we know about that. I said, well, they rolled up Mu Young Lee with a bunch of his electronics. Somebody's got to be working on that. Would you guys be working on that? And I hope the guy doesn't ever take up playing poker,
because maybe I could win, actually. Because he goes, we might be working on that. I was like, okay, so they're working on it, I think. But they're not ever going to really tell us if, in fact, they're doing that. The difficulty that nobody wants to acknowledge is that the state legalized it. So you kind of have that. You guys are dealing with that. You're going to deal with that. We're all in the crosshairs of that. ICE doesn't care if you're a citizen or not. Nobody cares about that. So when they go on even if they go on a raid and they catch these people and you can't prove who they are, it takes so long to figure out who they are, and at the end of the day, there's nowhere to send them. So they wind up basically just letting those people go. Most of them are low-level offenders. So the DEA should be involved in this, but I think we have like one guy in the entire state or something, maybe two. That part is silly. The federal government now is in the process of deciding that maybe we should legalize it because that'll solve all of our problems. Said no one smart ever.
Sure it will.
Yeah, because the criminals really are just being criminals because they haven't been shown a legal path to how to build a real business. They'll switch it all around and become legal as soon as you do that. So they're talking about that. So this administration has no interest in providing any resources because it deals with marijuana. If they were criminal enterprises growing tomatoes, we could roll them up in a heartbeat. I don't know about the interstate traffic. We've tried that. We've worked on that. We continue to press on it. We continue to do as much public, roll as much out in the public, because really it's the public that's going to put the pressure on all these folks at the state level, since the folks from the state are not here. But at the state level, you got to remember Gavin Newsom and the legislature, they've passed all these pro-marijuana things because this is going to be the solution to everything. They absolutely won't take, someone said they should declare a state of emergency. Well, that's great. Siskiyou County's done that for 5 years, and Gavin Newsom gives them the one-fingered salute, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, thanks for that, in the garbage. So your declaration of emergency is it's only impressive for you and the citizens in your county, but it doesn't get accepted, therefore the resources do not come.
Sure.
They do not have any interest in providing resources because that would mean marijuana has caused a problem, and that blows their narrative up. And it's only happening to us in rural areas who don't really carry the bulk of the vote. So really, what kind of trouble can we be? Not really that big. So we can just go deal with it.
So it doesn't sound like what you're telling me is...
There's nothing clear. There's no hey,
so
we found this terrific resource and
so
here you go.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's any troops on the ground to assist. It doesn't sound like there's any actual funding to help pay for some enforcement.
They had the HIDA funds. I don't know what the restriction is on the HIDA funds right now.
I think the HIDA fund's pretty far gone. But
hey, one thing I can warn you is the state will tell you that if you were to legalize commercial growing, that you would have resources. That's a big lie.
Yeah.
Talk to the other counties that have done that, thinking that they would get some help on the illegal side. Yeah, you get zero.
Well, I guess my point kind of is, you described a very serious problem, but I don't see a whole lot of help coming from the feds.
Absolutely.
We're kind of on our own, and maybe the state, but as you well described, we're not going to get a whole lot from the state.
Well, the temptation is to say, hey, it's not a federal issue, because technically it isn't a federal issue. And so I've had people kind of in my face about that. Well, it's not a federal issue. Why are you up in their business about it? And I'm like, well, we represent the citizens of the district, so the least we could do is spread the word and support the people who are trying to solve the problem and try to get them resources.
Yeah, the concern I have is, as you described it so well, it's such a large issue, and we don't have, we may have some of those issues like what you described, and certainly we have a lot of the moderate, intermediate issues here, and it's going to be a lot of resources, and it doesn't sound like the feds are going to be able to help us. It doesn't look like the state will. I don't expect the state to help us. Puts a lot of burden on the county to try to come up with not only the funding, but the manpower the personnel to be able to do some of this. Not saying that we shouldn't try. I'm just saying.
Well, if you look at the whole big giant thing, like there's a huge problem up in Doris and Butte Valley. They're kind of not really. They're not quite doing that one yet. They're doing little bits here and there. Hornbrook has a problem up there. They're working on that. They've had to focus a spot find a thing, which is their water ordinance. The water ordinance is going to make the most hurt at the fastest and hit the most people and send the bulk of them fleeing. And that was the goal, was to let them know they were serious about that. They did get help from National Guard. National Guard is called out by the governor's office. I mean, we have some forces at work at the state and federal level that are not interested in helping. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to press on them. We have sent demand letters to DEA, FBI, Treasury, especially Treasury. I mean, gosh, you guys, I mean, I don't know about you. I don't make millions of dollars, and I certainly have never sold water and made $13 million cash under the table. But if I did, they would be on me like a smell. I mean, I would fall in a hole so big I'd never get out.
Thank you, Aaron.
So we will continue to do that, but there is nothing like, here you go, got a pile of money for you.
Okay.
But when we do, we're totally telling you.
And
No secret.
Aaron, while you're there, one quick question. We have a lot of problems. I mean, I know, I'm very familiar with that area that you showed us pictures of. I am. But what we have a problem is we have a lot of streams and creeks, and so we don't have as many water trucks and where they're having to water. They go in, they sneak out in the creek, they pump it out, and then they take it. And so it's a little more difficult because it's kind of spread out and it's harder to. Do you have any suggestions for?
I'm hoping
with the
that in
streams?
this county, we can help you press more on the water agencies, because if it isn't surface water, you know, I don't know in what alternate universe you get to spread carbofuran all over the ground anywhere, but they don't seem to care about the water table as long as it's not running by.
Right.
But there is a lot of surface water theft here, and I'm starting here. I've been working mostly up there, and so I'm going to shift my effort here and see if we can get the water agencies.
Okay.
But to date, EPA, those guys, it's too dangerous, da-da-da. So.
I know. And I've seen a lot of presentations, pictures and everything and I can't impress upon people enough that there is when you go into, they've done studies on like grasshoppers and insects, and the furadan and all the traces of all these chemicals are in our insects. And so I've been upset about this for years because this is really destroying our environment. It really is. And the thing and I shared this with you the other day, is that people are not thinking about, this is a product that's being produced and being sold and distributed. Who is ingesting it? But our young people. Think about that, people. This is a public health crisis. These are deadly chemicals that are being injected. Excuse me.
Thank you, please.
These are deadly chemicals that people are ingesting.
And we have government agencies that are supposed to be in charge of all that. And at this particular point in time, because again, if it was tomato plants, we would have, everybody would be on it right now. If they were rice growers, if they were cattle producers, they're on them all the time. But because it's marijuana, that just seems to be like I know, can't get there from here. So we're going to continue to put their feet to the fire, because you can't keep going after regular citizens for minor infractions for cattle and farming and all of that, and then let criminals just run free because they're scary. I mean, that just makes our citizens want to be more scary, which is bad. So, that help?
Yes,
Moderately
thank you.
helpful?
And thank you again for coming. It was kind of last minute, but it worked out. Thank you.
No, happy to help. That's
Thank
why
you.
we're here.
Go ahead, Supervisor Ball.
Thank you, Chair Commenti. I'd like to try to get somewhere rather than just have the conversation back and forth here today. We can sit around here and all day lament what we can't do, the federal help that we don't have, the state help that we don't have, but I'm telling you, the buck stops here. We can blame everybody else in the world, but the collective voice of 3 votes on this board tonight can give staff direction to do anything we choose to do if we simply have the willpower to do so. So I'll just stop right there and then move through some of the thoughts that have already been. So the buck stops here. So I heard somebody else say that tonight, and that's the truth. Okay, the buck does stop here. I will own it for my portion of the 3 votes. I will own whatever happens tonight. Okay. In a matter of protocol, we have a motion on the floor. The chairman should not allow any other conversation, but should find out whether It's my turn to talk, Supervisor Modi, if you don't mind.
If there's something I need to do, I'll be more than glad to.
So, yes, and I'm saying this in a very friendly way, and I don't appreciate Supervisor Modi's interruption. So, a matter of protocol, when there's a motion placed on the floor, regardless of whether you think the timing is right, you should call to find out if there's a second. Okay. If it fails for a facade of a second, then you go on with the conversation. We don't have the right to say whether or not the timing of the motion or the motion that's made is correct. So, having said that, I would ask you to make a different motion, because the motion tonight should be giving staff direction. We can't vote in tonight an eradication team, but we can allow staff direction to do that. If you make that motion for the sake of discussion, I will second it to give staff direction.
Sure, I will amend my motion to that.
Okay, so I'm going to second it for the sake of discussion, and I'd prefer not to vote on it yet, because I think that we want far more than that, Patrick. I think that's a starting point, but I think that we need a lot more than an eradication team. We need a methodology to get us there. So the most important quote that I heard today, and I want to get to this, was, and I tried to write it down, says, what are you going to actually do? Not just say you're going to do, but what are you actually going to do? So I'm going back to you. You're earning the big bucks over there, our CEO. You didn't come in tonight without a plan, okay, to recommend to us. A pace forward, something. So I would like to hear the basic skeleton of what you have prepared in advance to advise us with tonight, so that we might all come together. We can talk about it. We can decide if there are parts of it we like. I know you're talking about how-tos, where the money might come from. I think that's the next step here. So if you don't mind, Chairman, may I, through the chair, request that?
Yeah, the way I understand this is going to work is Eric's queued up to do that right now.
Well, whoever you want to do it, I think a lot of discussion back and forth doesn't help us.
That was why I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to Mr. Jones's motion.
Okay.
I just want to hear what our assistant CEO is working on, so we can just make a more informed decision.
I appreciate that, because I think that's where we have to go.
I agree. And before you start, Eric, Supervisor Jones, I have you up here. Do you want to say something right now?
Yeah, well, just very briefly. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of partners here, and we do not know their intentions. We have no idea what the DA is or isn't going to do. We don't know what Fish and Game is going to do. But clearly, if we reinstated the marijuana eradication team, that would start the ball rolling, and these others would slowly come around. That is something that we can do tonight. And we can talk all day long about these other agencies and how we do need to collaborate with them and work with them. But we have to start first. They're not going to start first. We have to do that. These board members here have talked about this for many years. Now, we know we had a marijuana eradication team, and it was successful, and it worked. And so, to me, that's where we start. And I, too, would like to take a look at a water ordinance. And I've tried to bring that up, and I've made a motion to that effect in the past, and I haven't seen that go anywhere. So there's lots of things that our sister county has done that we can do. But the reason why I made the motion for the eradication team is that's where we can start it and show that we're serious about dealing with the problem, and then engage with the DA and any other agency that we need to make this move forward. And the CEO has indicated that July this month they would have a plan. Eric McGreeny is going to talk about that plan, and let's see where it goes. So that is all, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. McGreeny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Clemente, members of the board, Eric McGreeny, Assistant CEO. So I appreciate everybody's comments here tonight in the public for coming and expressing their needs, their concerns. Aaron's presentation was very good. I know exactly what I was talking about. I want to even address Ms. Rose and her question specific to me, which was, what's my commitment? My commitment has always been to enforcing marijuana. I can, as Mr. Bonner alluded to at the beginning, he and I worked side by side for many years working on a marijuana enforcement team. Spent many summers doing that, many operations, and my commitment to that has always remained. Unlike some other comments that have been made in the past of whether or not my commitment to that is deviated, it never has. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just one department. It's bigger than just the sheriff's office doing this. And I appreciate Supervisor Jones and your immediate attack on wanting to implement a team, because that's what we're looking for tonight. As part of the plan development, what we need is a commitment from the board. That's what I need to hear. That's what we need to hear, is a commitment from the board, and then hearing what the community has to say to put that plan together. Now, I'll tell you, the plan has already started. The comprehensive plan for the board to bring back to the board to consider has already started. But we'd be remiss if we didn't stop tonight to take pause to listen to the community, to listen to Officer Joe. I took this week and I read your 17-page white paper. Very well written, very well put together. It was very well done. But the climate has changed from when he and I were doing this back in the day, when we were, I'll call it ripping and running. The climate has changed, and because they've legalized it through the different propositions, whether we agree with it or not, it's now become, we need the teeth to get the prosecution, not just taking the plants, which will be part of it, but we need the prosecution component too. And we've already had meetings, and I'll get to that in a minute, but this is a new refocus plan that I hope to propose here after taking a lot of this input tonight and getting direction from the board and moving forward and bringing these other departments in, because it's going to morph and it's going to change. It's going to be a fluid plan, but it has to go with the environmental crimes aspect of it. There's an environmental crime aspect of it. There's a public health. There's a code enforcement. There's a, I didn't hear it mentioned tonight, but I'll tell you, there's a human trafficking component of it, very much so. You have these cartels that are bringing people up under duress. So all that needs to be considered more than just putting a team together to go and rip the plants, because we want the prosecution too. We want the teeth behind it. We want the cleanup efforts behind that. So that's where you come in with, again, the direction from the board, which I'm hearing very clear tonight, which will, in my vision, our vision is the CO's office, the sheriff, the DA, it's resource management with environmental health, code enforcement, it's the health department, it's county council, it's the whole entire county package, but it's more than that too. It's the state partners. So several weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, we put out an email to 64 people to participate in a Teams, Zoom, social media meeting. We had several dozen people in that meeting, to include water quality control, Department of Fish and Wildlife, to name a few. And I was trying to wrap my mind around the old school way of doing it versus the new way of doing it. And that was my takeaway, was going after it with the environmental crime, because that gives it the felony nexus. That felony is what allows us to write the search warrants, to get the additional teams up here and the support to do a collaborative, hard-hitting effort that, again, is prosecutable. And that's where the DA involvement comes in on it, too. So I've learned, even in the last few weeks, just how big this needs to be as far as collaboration and cooperation. I heard the word tonight, collaboration, and that's exactly what has to happen, and that's already happened. So after that initial meeting where we had the invitation go out to 64 participants, I had a follow-up meeting with the key stakeholders of those agencies. I've already gotten commitment from those state agencies to come to Shasta County to work at zero cost to us. So it's leveraging those state agencies that come up to bring the environmental scientists to do the water testing, to do the soil sampling, to do all that stuff that now takes a package that we can deliver to the DA and have a prosecution behind it, versus something where we just rip plants and then they come and they sue the county. That doesn't work. Those days are gone. So, and we've learned, and we heard Aaron confirm tonight, there's no federal assistance. We get a small portion for enforcement on federal lands, but it doesn't help us in the private lands, as we've heard. I know you talked about the HIDA funds. I think we get some supplemental HIDA funds around $22,000, which is a drop in the bucket to what's going to be needed. So my message is this plan is being developed already. We've already had the partners come to the table. The discussions are already being had. The state resources have already committed. And this problem isn't unique to just Shasta County, as we've seen. It's Siskiyou, it's Trinity, it's Tehama. About a month ago, the North State leaders all met. I was up in the air for 6 hours over 4 different counties looking at all this. This is not unique to us. And what we don't want to do, and what we want the sheriffs to do, is to communicate so that we're not shoving these groups from one county to another. We're not a boat moving through water, just flushing it into our neighbors, and then once it passes, that it falls back in on us. We need the enforcement to get the prosecution to eliminate it, not move it on. So again, I thank the people that were here tonight. I thank you for your passion. This plan will address the financial costs that we anticipate might come to this county. Again, there are some free resources there. There's the National Guard. That's another resource that will bring boots on the ground when we do these operations to help with just personnel and person power, man-woman power. So this plan is not immediate. It will take time to develop, and we're taking this information from here tonight, and we do plan on bringing a very good, comprehensive proposal back before you all here next month. But I don't want to say that we're just kicking the can down the road or we're going to come up with a plan and then we'll bring it back. There's already cooperation and commitment from those teams to come into Shasta to start doing some directed enforcement to some of our target locations that we've gotten through the correspondence from the board, that I've gotten personally. I've got a spreadsheet that's being developed that I'm keeping daily with parcel numbers, with addresses, with specific locations. So I appreciate those emails, those comments. I appreciate that information because it is being heard, it's being listened to, it's being worked on. So as this plan comes into play, that doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We're still partnering with these local agencies to do something until this plan can fold out. But this is a multi-year approach. This isn't something that's just right now. It has to evolve. It has to go long-term. Even in the wintertime, when the growth season, well, we know that some of these are year-long grows, but when things slow down, start looking at the people that are leasing their land. Start looking at the contractors who are selling the product, selling the soil, selling the water, targeting those things too. So that's what that team needs to be doing. And this is a long-term, multi-year approach from my perspective. So that is my plan to bring back to you here by next month is get a formal commitment from these agencies, have a dollar amount, have a personnel roster on what this looks like with all the county entities participating in this, and so we can be effective and be long-term effective, not just a short-term, quick shock and all, get out, we're done, and there's no follow-up or follow-through. So,
thank you. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you. So big picture, and I'm not going to hold you to this, Mr. McGreeny, but we've already had some discussions on where those resources might come from.
Right.
And you've identified some, I'm sure, at least an overall budget that would involve those multiple agencies you spoke about that will be cost to us directly here. I note that we have code enforcement here. We're going to have some help on prosecution, and that involves the whole team here. So right. We bring all that together. I'm not looking for where that comes from tonight, but have we identified sources of finances that could get us to move forward?
So, well, and that's something we're working on, but preliminarily, to answer that question.
Just big picture.
Yeah, just some of the things we've looked at and we've challenged the team with already is looking at vacancies. Vacancies that have been in place within this county for 18 months or more. Those are vacancies that are allocated, they're funded, but maybe they're not being filled for whatever reason. So we're going to start meeting with those agencies and take those salary savings of positions that have been vacant for months and months. There's some positions that we saw on the list here yesterday, 70 months that have been vacant. So let's take those, let's leverage that money and bring that over to help. Maybe it won't completely pay for, but it'll help offset and supplement some of these teams and the efforts to go forward.
Well, thank you for recognizing that and sharing it publicly, because last time I looked, that's a multi-million-dollar value just on that one item alone. So thank you very much. One thing that wasn't on your list I'd like to suggest be part of the plan that comes forward, and I'll give the example of our fuel break. We have 19 miles worth of shingle town, and we have a fuel break that goes all the way up there. And it only works if they come back and continue to remove the understory and the growth. Otherwise, you have ladder fuels, and all of that work becomes absolutely useless.
Null and void. Yep.
So the follow-through
Correct.
On the next growing season, the continuous list, identifying as you can property owners, maybe they change, and as Aaron mentioned, the roles continue to change, but the same sites plan to revisit and to at least reconnect with those so that they're not moving out the front door and then they're just moving back in the back door again. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Rickard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. McGreeny, and I want to thank you. You and I have been talking quite a bit lately about this subject, and it's something that, as you know, I won't give up on. I do know that you and Mr. Pontus, and I appreciate Mr. Pontus going out last week with Joe. I think that was important to be on the ground. I know the area you went to, I think I was there 4 or 5 years ago. I went there with a sheriff's deputy. We have some areas in the Big Bend, Oak Run areas that are really dangerous that people can't even go into. But one thing I have, in my many conversations with various people that have been dealing with these grows, that they will research who owns the properties, and I think that there's oftentimes the same names pop up we had a situation at the end of Day Road that there was a name, and I think that he's also now over in the Alpine subdivision. And I think Aaron made that point, is you kind of tie who's really there's some real leaders in this, and if we could really focus on those particular people, I think that's a big part of this, is to find out who's really driving the bus on a lot of this.
Yeah, and thank you. And I agree with that. That's the follow-up investigation that's crucial. And that was one of the specific questions I asked to the state agencies is, I appreciate the help. I mean, by all means, they're going to come in and do all that soil sample testing and evidence collection. And that's all on their dime, which is phenomenal. But they don't do the follow-up investigation. They're here to assist, and they move on. They have their region also. So that's the component that we're going to have to try to figure out and master, is that investigative, and how to pool the resources, where those resources come from, and how we allocate them to have that year-round service, multi-year approach, and all the follow-up that's necessary.
Thank you, Supervisor Modi.
Thank you. I just was wondering, are there going to be some additional ordinances and things that are going to be necessary to help this? Mr. Jones mentioned the water ordinance. Aaron mentioned that it was very helpful in Siskiyou County, although maybe in a different setting. I'm not sure if it works for us or not, but whether it be the water ordinance or other ones that you think are need to come forward on this?
So thank you, Supervisor Modi. So the water ordinance is something to definitely be explored. What was extremely beneficial when I met with these state agencies last week is they will provide the verbiage that's necessary to whoever the search warrant author is, whoever is writing that search warrant, the case agent, if you will. They will provide the necessary verbiage to include in that search warrant, so it's front-loaded to allow the opportunity for them to have the teeth to come in to do what they need to do as part of that investigation. So.
Well, and as been mentioned by many people, the bigger issue here, probably not so much groundwater, is that just people stealing water right out of the creeks.
I got a text message today from a dear friend that's experiencing it with the Cottonwood Creek, where he lives off Gas Point Road. So it's, again, there's no one specific part of the county. It's all over, and it's a statewide problem. So
certainly the water issue's huge out in the Ono area, that people no longer get water out of their creek. So
right.
Thank you, Supervisor Baugh.
How do we get around the typical multi-layered code enforcement challenge that spreads this whole process out from 6 months to a year?
Well, and so thank you. That's another great question. So you work with code enforcement for the code enforcement issues, but when you have water quality control, when you have environmental health, and you have those issues.
And that was your key, the environmental health.
That's the key, that's the teeth.
Okay.
That's the teeth. I mean, not that our ordinance doesn't have teeth, but that gets the criminal prosecution, that brings it to the level of a felony.
So do we have the ability to, as Leonard just mentioned, Supervisor Modi just mentioned, to up our game on our own ordinances that equal state felony comparisons?
I don't know the question to that, but I'll look into that. That's a good question.
And if I could just add on to that, because that's exactly the same thing I'm thinking, is there things that we can do in our process, not just the felonies, but a lot of people are dealing with issues that are going to be less than that, but they're still very intrusive on neighbors, and our hearing process is very slow and cumbersome and very lengthy. And so I agree with you. Can we look at some things to maybe either get more people involved to get it done quicker, or some way to make the process go faster? Because it's usually 6 to 8 months, and then the whole process, they've already harvested, and it's too late.
And so just completing my comment, and I appreciate that, that's where I was going to. If we can, and I'll put it politely, Mr. Cruz, I'd be willing to take a risk to be able to minimize the time and to maximize the effectiveness. And if we can get 3 or more supervisors that will say we're willing to take the risk, then it's going to be your job to find a way to keep us whole, but also accomplish what we're after.
And Supervisor Ball, along those lines, just so you know, in the conversations that we've already had with Mr. Pontus, Mr. McGreeny, and the other folks, my office is already exploring a way to streamline code enforcement to the extent possible.
Okay. So I'm just saying it one step farther. I'm asking you to listen to the will of this board. I'm just saying for myself personally, I'm willing to push it over the edge of what would be a normally accepted line, and I'm willing to push toward the risk, because right now we're killing all of these people out here. We're killing homes, we're killing values. When I hear people can't, and I don't want to point you out because I know it was very emotional, but when I hear that she can't drive to her property that she's owned in her family for, I don't want to exaggerate, I think you said 20, 30 years. Okay, so that's wrong. I'm willing to push the risk to get rid of that. So if we can collectively agree, then we have a game on. So
Absolutely.
that's my
And
thought.
Supervisor Ball, I have always followed the direction of this board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rickard.
Yes, on top of that, can we increase the fines? Do we have the ability to basically make it hurt a little bit? I realize that they bring in such income, but I think do we have any flexibility with that?
I'll defer
To the extent, and again, it's a question of trying to see what we can, but where the board is able to establish certain violations as being misdemeanors, we have additional flexibility under the law to establish higher civil penalties in that regard. Where the complication comes up to a certain extent is for certain types of violations. The Adult Use of Marijuana Act has said that those violations are infractions, and then by statute, we're then limited in the amount that we can do. So the trick will be in the discussions as we move forward to find where we can find violations as misdemeanors, and we can then increase pretty significantly the amount of the penalties.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. McGreeny, when we physically see a large-scale marijuana grow, say 500 plants, what is that? Is that a felony at that moment, or what?
It's a misdemeanor right now. Right.
It's a misdemeanor. If a felon is in operation of that, is that a felony?
If there's, and that's where you get into, are there weapons involved? Is there the chemical part of it with the fertilizers and the road, I'm not going to say it wrong. Yeah, thank you. And so that's where you start bringing in those other components and then making it a felony. And then that will, if you have a repeat offender, once those felonies start stacking up, then you start reaching prison eligibility, where right now it's just fines. And that's collateral damage to these grows. They're willing to pay those fines. That's the cost of doing business. So we got to get to the felony threshold and then start. It's not a strike anymore, but I'll use that illustration, start developing these strikeable offenses to increase the punishment for each subsequent offense.
With regards to large-scale grows, again, approximately 500 plant, as a misdemeanor, is that a state law?
State.
That's state law.
Thank you. So I'd like to say a few things, if I may. Supervisor Rickard, you just came up. So go
Just really quickly, I just wanted to say that we need to include, a lot of partners. I think the California Farm Bureau. I've actually brought up illegal grows with my NACWA board, and they're really interested in that. I think you could get a lot of state agencies, different groups like that. And I think a lot of, maybe the Cattlemen's Association would get involved, but I think there might be some help and some support from some of those kinds of groups, because it does desecrate our land and our environment, and it's really important to those of us that are stewards of the land that we really want to protect it. And I just want to thank you again. I think Health and Human Services, again, I'm going to talk about the public health part of this, that this is impacting the health of our citizens also. So
thank you.
Thank you. So there's a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming in and giving comments that were well thought out and that were insightful and gave us the information that we needed. As Mr. Pontus said when we opened up, we have to do this together. And I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that there's some political divide going on. But my ask is in this situation that regardless of that, we can all just work together. Because I will speak for every person on this board. We all want to fix this problem. We don't want to affix blame. We want to fix the problem. So I appreciate everybody coming, giving their evening, and doing such a great job to tell us what you felt in a very professional and insightful way. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. I don't know where our assistant CEO, so I'll blow this towards county council. Is there civil liabilities that we can go after here? Since the threshold for it's preponderance of evidence as opposed to a reasonable doubt, are there civil avenues we can take in dealing with these illegal grows? And you don't have to answer that right with any detail, because is that a possibility that we'll look at?
In short, yes. Yes. I mean, any violation of the county code can be either prosecuted as a criminal violation, but can also be subject to civil enforcement in court and also through administrative abatement.
Perfect.
I think the concern that would be is, again, limited on the amount of fine.
Right now, yes. So we'd have to kind of see how much we can get as far as the penalties go. Again, to the extent that a particular violation can be legitimately classified as a misdemeanor, this board then has the ability to establish civil penalties that are very, very large. To the extent that the law says it is by law, it can be a criminal infraction, then it also says then any civil penalties are substantially limited. So that will be the key question that we have to look at. And generally speaking, most violations of the county code are a misdemeanor and established by law, but the Adult Use of Marijuana Act did unfortunately say certain marijuana violations are by statute infractions. And so it's a question of trying to find that sweet spot where we can.
Yeah, just one, I'm sorry. If we were able to create an environmental hazard situation out of it, then could we go after them for all the cleanup costs?
Yes, yes, and that's a question. We wanted to see what we can find as far as environmental issues that we can do that are within our purview.
$1 million or
and yes, that's something to explore.
So my 2 cents there is I would like us to be as aggressive as we possibly could on this. And I saw 2 gentlemen want to speak, and I'm more than willing to do that. Let me just finish my closing here. I've had this conversation with Mr. Pontus. You know, the way it works is whenever this board does something, whoever is the chair at the time signs it. So not everybody signs it, the chair signs it. And I am very comfortable being very aggressive in terms of finding funding and signing that. Because I really do think we have to move, and we have to move aggressively. And then I'm really gonna hold our assistant CEO's feet to the fire and ask him to please come back down so it will be on the record, because that's the kind of guy I am, and tell us what date specifically your draft, and we all understand when you're dealing with strategic plans, and we all know this, they're an evolution. They kind of morph, and they're very fluid, and they're very dynamic. But I think it's time to put a stake in the ground and say that we will see this as a board on the following date, please.
I believe our last board meeting in August, because we said August there's a few board meetings in there, the 31st.
Okay, so that is now on the record.
But do we want to do a special meeting for this, or we want to bring it back for a regular meeting?
I personally would like a special meeting. I think there'll be a lot of comments that people want to make. I think this very format at this time, without any other county business going on, really plays very well. So that would be my recommendation. I'll leave it to my fellow board members. If that's what you want.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if the board is available Thursday, the 26th of August, we could aim for a similar time as tonight and present that plan to the board.
Okay, please, okay. I asked you, I realize there's a lot of emotion in politics around this, but we're trying to solve a problem. So please, allow us the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
I have 2 other committed meetings on that day and that afternoon, actually.
Okay, and we're talking
Thursday the 26th.
6th.
Date tossed out. My earlier meetings ended about 3, so I would be available for 4.
I am available on the 25th. The 24th, we do not have a board meeting. We could do something on the 24th.
All right, why don't we do it on the 24th?
24th is great.
At 4 o'clock.
Let's do that.
That works for us.
Okay. We've got this. Thank you very much for your input. Okay, I'm going to ask you, please, Lori, to be quiet. Thank you. There was 2 gentlemen I saw with their hands up. If you'd like to come up to the podium, would certainly.
Well, Chair, could I ask Eric
Sure,
one more
certainly
question? So with that plan, it still is going to revolve around a marijuana eradication team. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, and we can still move on that motion in that second. But I want to make sure everybody gets heard. I think that's really important tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Sure.
I had a question. I know that civil asset forfeiture has been abused severely. Is there any way to tie to a conviction the confiscation and sale of this marijuana to fund the eradication team? So this is not an issue that drags on the county. We have legal dispensaries here. Undercut the illegal market by driving down the legal. Make the legal price cheap to where it's too expensive to get the illegal stuff. Just a suggestion, a thought.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dokes? And then, Aaron, you can come up. After.
Would we be able to divide that 5 ways?
Thank you, Chairman Tremente and Board and Matt, for all of you for allowing us to speak tonight. Really, this is the first time I've really felt in this county that I've had an opportunity to speak to you and not just speak at you. And I do not like just speaking at you. I do like speaking to you. So I call my fellow deputy, Tom Barnard, to perhaps talk to us and ask this question of County Council and to Matt. We're not just interested in civil asset forfeiture. We're interested in actually taking the properties, something that both Tom and I have done in our careers, where we go after, and that property becomes county property. Now, we understand that the piece goes to the feds and we get a very little piece of it, but still, it is a permanent solution. I think there should be a new county park out in southeastern Shasta County, or a new county ag extension facility for Shasta College. And when we can prove, and we're not going to get to those felony convictions unless we start filing the misdemeanor cases. And once we get those 3 misdemeanors of repeat growers, which is a regular issue here, then we can come back and we can have that felony. And that's right now. And we could start tomorrow. Tom and I have talked reasonably within 72 hours. We could develop a plan with the CINTIF team that's here now, and we could take at least send a message. Shasta County is no longer open for business. Thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Aaron, come on up. No, Lori, let Aaron go. She was in queue.
I was just going to add that in Siskiyou County, they did a couple of ways of funding some of this. If you can picture Highway 97 goes up and I-5 goes here, right? Well, in that triangle, and then you've got, Lake Shastina, so they're kind of encapsulated. So the sheriff was kind of smart, and they would just drive up, through Mount Shasta Vista. They just drive around. And as soon as they started driving around, what do drug dealers always do? Grab the guns, the money, and the drugs. And they ran out the other side where they accidentally had sheriff's deputies who were watching for tail lights and, speeding and checking different things. They rolled up like $500,000 in 1 week. Obviously, they don't get to keep it all, but that was kind of fun, and it was painful for them, the drug people. And the other one was the asset forfeiture. Mu-Young Lee, like I said, took the DA year and better to make that case, and I think you should check on the detail with that. But he does have to give them quite a bit of money. I think it's multiple millions to clean up that property, and his 9 pieces of property are currently being held by the county just so that it can't go back into production again. I don't think they're planning on owning it forever, but for the time being, they have taken it under the county's custody and are holding it. So the asset forfeiture does work, but you've got to make a fairly big case for that. It isn't something you can do in onesie twosie, from what I have seen. But I would definitely check with them because they've had success with both those things.
Thank you. Supervisor Baugh. Okay, go ahead. And these will be our last two speakers. Sir, are you in queue as well? Okay, we'll take three more.
Okay, real
and
quick.
Then we'll cut it there.
Lori, District 4. I would like to see these special meetings that are being put on in the evening time to be actually after work for most people. 4 p.m. is still working time for most individuals. 5 o'clock's cutting it close. 6 p.m. would be ideal. City Council has evening meetings. I've mentioned this before. I don't know why this is so difficult or hard to have a special focused topic start at a reasonable time. Secondly, one of my solutions, along with Richard Gallardo, is that we're going to have a town hall meeting because apparently it has not been happening with our local officials, and part of the solution, which is what we're trying to go toward, and not wait and kick it down the can, street, whatever's happening for these months and years and whatnot, is we're going to have a town hall Saturday, July 31st, Lake Reading. We're going to have a variety of different speakers, and we're going to also look for solutions so that people have more than 3 minutes to say something. Okay, so this is part of my solution that we're offering.
Thank you.
It's coming out of our pocket, and we have the park that day. We've got some signage. I'm also going to be on the radio on Sovereign Minds with Richard Gallardo if people would like to call in, because we are hearing about the death threats, and yes, we've heard about a murder or two with the 8 or 3. I can't keep up. The thing is, please listen to this. People are dying right now because of this quote-unquote inoculation jab.
I don't want to go down that.
I know, but I would like to have a special meeting for that.
Thank you. We'll take that under advisement. Is there anything?
Is somebody going to write that down, because I've asked for it
Is
before?
there anything else you'd like to share?
I want a special meeting about the people being killed
Thank
right
you.
now.
It's duly noted. Next speaker,
Thank
please.
you.
Next speaker, sir.
So I'm very appreciative of his comment on the human trafficking, because cartels, they deal in 3 things: drugs, guns, and people. And so when you overlook an infraction, they'll move on to a misdemeanor. When you move on and you overlook that misdemeanor, they'll move on to the felonies, and then that's when you can finally get them. But by that time, they've stepped over bodies that you have to clean up. This needs to be dealt with. And as far as boots that can be put on the ground, there are hundreds in the North State of militia and community watch members that would lay their lives on the line for those people who are threatened in these communities. And if that's not enough, I know thousands across this state will come. The boots are already strapped up, they're waiting to be called. The communities need to be protected. We are the ones here. We can protect ourselves. We cannot wait for Sacramento to come and save us. They don't want to save us. They do not care about us. They think of us as racist country bumpkins.
Thank you, sir.
Which is none of that.
We appreciate your input. Thank you.
I still have time.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you could just stay on the marijuana.
It is all connected to each other.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Should we be quiet, please?
I don't mind their comments.
Go ahead.
Because it encourages me.
I do, and I'll encourage you to say what you want to say.
I enjoy their encouragement because it gives me more courage to speak to you.
Okay. Well, you can have all the courage. You don't need to take their courage. And
Well,
I'm gonna
apparently
ask
other
them-
people don't think so
I'm gonna
because they
ask them to
feel
be quiet.
scared just coming and speaking.
Go ahead.
They don't want to use their names. They don't want their faces. They've been
ahead. Go
told
ahead.
to
Go
wear
ahead.
masks.
Go ahead, sir.
It's all connected.
Go ahead, sir.
We have to enforce this as strongly as we can. If the state won't enforce these laws and they make huge crimes misdemeanors, we as a county need to enforce them larger. Our community is more important than what Sacramento thinks. That's all I'll have to say for now.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And this will be our final speaker, sir. Come on up.
I said one little thing, a couple of things I want to throw in here. 1973, I was almost a victim of land confiscation due to drugs. My dad passed away in 71. I had his house rented out up in Round Mountain. The guy that was renting it to was running drugs from the Mexican border to Washington State. The county came after it. They were going to confiscate the land. The only reason they didn't is the United States Navy stepped in and saved my butt because I was overseas. I was not what to call it, out of sight landlord. Anyway, the other thing I asked, and nobody's ever mentioned this, with this marijuana stuff, where's the tax evasion? Where's the money laundering? Those are both felonies, but yet nothing's being mentioned about it. Why can't we use those to step in on these people? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and if I could just, Chair Committee, I just wanted to, I think Aaron told us that that is being reported to those groups, so.
Yeah. So this will absolutely be our last speaker. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I want to thank you for your efforts. Please get something done. We also look to other counties. Mendocino County has had a huge marijuana problem for years. And the very things that we're facing here in this county, they're finding ways around it to get those large grows and bust those people. And I really implore you to take a look at some of what the other counties are doing in other areas. You know, like I said, I moved back to this county to get away from that crap.
Sure.
And here it is. It's right in my backyard. They damn near burned my house down. 2 years ago, they damn near burned us up from another big grow just over the hill from us, where their honey lab blew up and set the world on fire. It's got to stop. You know the problem. You know the solutions. Please, look at the other counties. I mean, Mendocino County is laying down felonies after felony after felony on these illegal grows. They see them, they go in, they take care of them. And I can guarantee you every one of those grows has an illegal gun on it. I'm not saying, you know, hey, guns are guns. People should be able to own them. But if you're committing a felony, you shouldn't have it with you. You know? And they're taking those people out, and they're taking the properties, and they're eradicating the grows. We can do it here. Please don't leave it to us citizens to take care of these problems. But make no mistake about it, it can happen. Like I said in my previous statements, I met the guys at the gate and let them know they ain't coming back out if they come in illegally. And if they do come back out, hopefully they'll be in chains. We aren't putting up with it anymore. Okay?
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, there will be no more public comment, but I've got Supervisor Baugh in queue.
Thank you so much, Chair Committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just want to weigh in on the thought of a strong program that would involve the ability for us to take that property. And the reason I'm saying that is that, as you are all well aware, it's common for a landowner, a large landowner, to be offered a cash payment of $40,000, $50,000 to, quote unquote, look the other way while somebody grows on their property. And if we come out with a strength of the law that pushes back against that, I think we can eliminate a lot of the challenges to begin with, because are you willing to lose your investment of your property for that $40,000 or $50,000 payment to look the other way? So I am going to advocate for that, and I think it's a reasonable way to move forward. And you know, when you hear this young man over here talk about local people that will help, and you think that that's not a possibility. But Supervisor, you admired the program up in Siskiyou County that took out a large portion of the grow. That was with the assistance of 40 of the militia folks in Cottonwood, California, with the sheriff's cooperation, with Sheriff LaRue's cooperation. So he used them for manpower, and he used them for effectiveness, and he used them for numbers, and it worked out very well without any harm, and it worked out to have people that are trained and on the ground. I'm not saying that that's the direction that every county should go, but I admire LaRue for stepping forward and finding the ability to multiply his own force by about 10, just with one small group of people, so who helped on the ground. I don't think we should overlook any possibility.
Thank you. So with that, we have a motion and a second, and I'll just paraphrase that we're going to move full speed ahead. And we have a target date that will have at least a significant draft. So I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. I'm sorry, what did I do?
Yeah. So we had a couple of different motions, so could we just go back to the, what, yeah.
Okay, so the original motion was we were going to move ahead with,
So the original motion was to reinstate a marijuana eradication team. I amended that motion to direct staff to come back to create and to recreate the marijuana eradication team. So they'll come back with that.
Okay, well, I think we're talking about something a whole lot bigger than that is what I thought I heard.
Yes, that's what I heard too.
And so.
Well, but this.
Well, then I'm going to do a substitute motion
Well,
to.
Can we wait, because I had mentioned this to you as well as expanding that motion to include the recommendations that we heard tonight.
And I can amend my motion again to bring back for discussion the recreation of a eradication team and the other issues that we discussed.
Second.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to actually address all the issues that we've discussed today and develop them into the most coherent plan that we can.
Are you comfortable with that? Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, well then I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? It passes unanimously. Once again, thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate it. This is going to be a long road, but we are engaged and we want to be on it. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.